My wife's brother moved in with us 3 months ago. Except he wasn't her brother, and he wasn't gay. And everything I thought I knew about the woman I married was a lie she'd been building since before our first date. So here's the short version. My wife convinced me to take in her supposedly disowned brother who was fresh out of rehab. Turns out he was actually her drug addict boyfriend she never broke up with, and she fabricated an entire family backstory, conservative parents, a painful estrangement, all of it just to keep this man close while married to me. I'm 32 male. My wife is Renee, 28, and genuinely one of the sharpest people I've ever met, which makes all of this worse. The man she moved into our home is Marco, 27, and her parents, Gerald and Diane, are the warm, lovely people Renee told me she'd been disowned by. They hadn't disowned anyone. They didn't even know Marco existed. Let me back up to where this started because the lie didn't begin with Marco moving in. It began on our second date. Renee told me about her family over cheap pasta at a place that doesn't exist anymore. She said her parents were deeply conservative, the kind who monitored her phone until she was 20, who refused to let her study out of state, who saw any deviation from their plan as betrayal. She said she'd clawed her way out, moved cities, cut contact, built herself from nothing. I remember sitting across from her thinking, times this woman is extraordinary. Asterisk. She told me her younger brother had come out as gay and her parents had disowned him completely, changed the locks, removed his photos. She said she'd tried to intervene and they'd cut her off too. She cried telling me this. Real tears, or what I believed were real tears. Her voice cracked in the right places. Her hands shook holding her wine glass. I fell in love with her courage before I fell in love with her. We married 14 months later. Her family didn't attend the wedding. I never questioned it. Why would I? The story was airtight. She had a stepbrother named Ryan from Gerald's first marriage, and she'd mentioned him exactly twice in passing enough to establish he existed, never enough for me to dig. I realize now she rationed every detail like someone managing inventory. Then 3 months ago, she told me her brother had finally gone to rehab. She said he'd reached out. She said he had nowhere to go. She asked if we could take him in temporarily, just until he got stable. His name was Marco. I said yes because I loved her, and because I thought I was helping someone she loved. Marco arrived with a duffel bag and the kind of exhaustion that made him look 10 years older than 27. He was polite, quiet, grateful. He called me man a lot. He slept on our pull-out couch and did the dishes without being asked. But things didn't sit right almost immediately. The first thing was the name. Renee's last name before marriage was Bellamy. Her parents were the Bellamys. Marco's last name, which I saw on a piece of mail that arrived for him in our mailbox the second week, was Reyes. I asked Renee about it casually. She said he'd legally changed it after the disownment wanted nothing to do with the family name. I nodded. Filed it away. The second thing was the whispering. They whispered constantly. In the kitchen when I was in the living room. On the balcony when I was showering. Once I came home early and they were sitting on the couch with a gap between them that looked recently manufactured, like two magnets pulled apart by a third hand. Marco stood up too fast. Renee smiled too wide. The third thing was that Marco never talked about the family. Not once. A man supposedly disowned by his parents, freshly sober, living in his sister's apartment, and he never mentioned them. Never said their names. Never expressed anger or grief, or anything at all about the people who'd supposedly destroyed his life. I posted about it online. Anonymous, vague. Just the broad strokes, wife's brother living with us, different surname, weird energy, constant private conversations. The responses split into two camps. Half said I was paranoid. The other half sent me links to threads I wish I'd never read. Wives who'd moved lovers into the family home disguised as cousins, brothers, old college friends. The playbook was almost standardized. Fabricate a sympathetic backstory. Exploit the husband's empathy. Install the other man under his roof. I read those threads for 4 hours. My hands were steady the entire time. Something in me had already known. I started building my case quietly. I asked Marco if he'd be willing to put together a resume so I could help him find work. He agreed. The resume listed his education, his work history, his full legal name, Marco Antonio Reyes. No mention of Bellamy. No name change documentation. The timeline of his employment showed continuous residence in a city 4 hours from Renee's hometown. He hadn't grown up where she grew up. He hadn't grown up in her family at all. That weekend, I told Renee I had a work trip near her hometown. I suggested she come along so we could visit her parents. I framed it casually already, knowing she'd refuse proximity to her actual parents. It was the one variable she couldn't control, so it was easier for her to say no. As expected, she said she was busy, but she kept asking me if I would be visiting her parents. I said no, I won't visit them alone. We can plan for the next time. In reality, I had no work trip. I went to her hometown only to meet her parents and uncover her truth. I don't want to get into the details of how I sourced their address. It was on her ID. So I went to their house and immediately told them not to reveal this to Renee because I was planning a surprise for her. Renee's birthday was around the corner a day after tomorrow. So I told them that I was arranging a surprise party for Renee and went there to invite them in person. They were pleased to receive me. Gerald shook my hand with both of his. Diane hugged me in the doorway. Their home was warm, cluttered with family photos, and nothing times about these people suggested the cold, controlling fundamentalists Renee had described. While speaking to them, I eventually opened up and told them that they don't seem conservative at all, not the way Renee had described. Gerald's face changed. Diane set down her tea. Conservative, Gerald said. We begged that girl to stay. I asked about their son. Gerald said, Ryan's in Seattle. We talk every Sunday. I asked carefully if they had another son, a younger one, named Marco. They looked at each other, then back at me, who Diane said slowly is Marco. I drove back to the hotel that night with every window down 80 miles an hour on an empty highway, and the only thought cycling through my head was this. Right now in my apartment, in the home I pay for, Renee and Marco are alone together. And they know exactly what they are to each other. Her birthday was in 2 days, and her parents had just accepted my invitation. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of anger. Anger would have been simpler. I lay in that hotel bed running the math on every conversation, every tear, every perfectly rationed detail she'd fed me over 3 years, and what kept me awake was the precision. This wasn't impulsive. This was architecture. I drove home the next morning, one day before her birthday. Marco was eating cereal at the kitchen counter, and Renee was blow-drying her hair in the bathroom. Everything looked normal. Everything had always looked normal. That was the craft of it. How was the trip, she asked when I kissed her cheek. Productive, I said. Actually, I want to do something special for your birthday tomorrow. Stay home. I'll handle everything. She smiled. The same smile from our second date, the one I'd once mistaken for vulnerability. You don't have to do all that. I want to, I said. I really want to. I spent that day in a kind of surgical calm. I bought a cake. I ordered flowers. I texted Gerald and Diane the address and the time 6 o'clock come straight up the door would be open. Diane sent back a string of heart emojis and wrote that she couldn't wait to see her baby girl. I stared at that message for a long time. These people loved Renee. They had never stopped. She had invented their cruelty the way a novelist invents weather to set the scene for a character who doesn't exist. The morning of her birthday, Renee woke up happy. She stretched across the bed and pulled me toward her and said, 30 looks good on me, don't you think I told her it did? Marco knocked on the bedroom door and wished her happy birthday through the wood. She laughed. I watched the ease between them, the familiarity that I'd once read as sibling comfort, and I saw it clearly now. The way her voice softened half a register when she spoke to him. The way his knock was gentle, almost intimate, 2 taps instead of 3. I told her I was handling dinner. She should relax, get dressed up, enjoy the day. She spent the afternoon doing her makeup while Marco sat on the couch scrolling his phone. At one point I walked past and he looked up at me with those tired eyes and said, "This is really cool of you, man." "Family's important," I said. He nodded. He had no idea what he was nodding to. By 5:30, Renee was in a green dress, her hair pinned up, standing in the kitchen, finishing a salad she'd insisted on making because she said she couldn't just contribute nothing. Marco had changed into a clean shirt. The apartment smelled like garlic and candle wax and the ordinary machinery of a life that had never been real. At 5:58, my phone buzzed. Gerald times. We're in the lobby. Asterisk. I told Renee I'd forgotten something in the car and went downstairs. Gerald was wearing a blazer. Diane was holding a wrapped gift with a bow that looked like she'd spent an hour on it. I shook Gerald's hand, hugged Diane, and led them to the elevator. "She's going to be so surprised," Diane whispered. "Yes," I said. "She is." I opened the apartment door and stepped aside. Diane walked in first. Then Gerald. The hallway opens directly into the kitchen and living room, one continuous space, and Renee was standing at the counter with a knife in one hand and a tomato in the other, and Marco was 3 feet away leaning against the fridge. Diane said, "Baby?" Renee's head turned. The knife stopped. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Her eyes went from her mother to her father to me, and I watched the blood leave her face in real time like someone had pulled a plug at the base of her throat. Gerald stepped forward, arms open, and then he saw Marco. He stopped. His arms lowered. "What are you doing here?" Gerald said. Not to Renee, to Marco. Marco straightened. His mouth opened. Closed. "You know each other," I said. I already knew, but I needed the room to hear it. "That's Marco Reyes," Gerald said, his voice flattening into something I hadn't heard from him before. "He's the reason we almost lost our daughter." Renee set the knife down. Her hands were shaking. "Dad, let me..." He's been living here, I said, for 3 months. Renee told me he was your son, that you disowned him for being gay. The silence that followed had texture. Diane's gift hit the floor. Gerald turned to Renee with an expression I can only describe as a man watching something he built catch fire. Oh, I said Ryan didn't come. It would have made things easier, isn't it? Renee flinched, like I'd struck her. Gerald crossed the kitchen in 4 steps, grabbed Marco by the collar of his clean shirt, and dragged him toward the door. Marco didn't resist. He went limp the way someone goes limp when they've always known this moment was coming. Gerald shoved him into the hallway and pointed at the elevator and said something quiet I couldn't hear, and Marco walked away without looking back. Diane was crying. Renee was standing in her green birthday dress in the kitchen she'd been cooking in 2 minutes ago, and she looked at me, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw her without a story prepared. How long? She whispered. Long enough, I said. The divorce took 11 weeks. She signed everything without contest. No negotiation, no lawyers jousting over assets. She showed up to the finalization alone, thinner, wearing no makeup. She didn't look at me. Gerald removed her from the family will. I know this because Diane called me 3 weeks after it was finalized, sobbing into the phone. She said Marco had relapsed. She said Renee was still with him. She said she didn't understand how her daughter, her brilliant, sharp, capable daughter, could throw away everything for a man who couldn't stay clean for 6 consecutive months. I didn't have an answer for her. I still don't. What I keep coming back to is this. Renee built an entire mythology. Cold parents, a disowned brother, a woman who'd clawed her way to freedom, and she built it so well that I married the character, not the person. Every detail measured, every tear placed. The woman I admired for her resilience was real, in a way I hadn't understood. She was times resilient. She maintained a lie across years, across a marriage, across the daily architecture of a shared life without a single crack I could see until a piece of mail arrived with the wrong name. That's not weakness. That's a kind of terrifying talent. And she spent all of it on Marco Reyes, a man who the last I heard was sleeping on someone's floor. I think about that sometimes. How the sharpest person I've ever known made the dumbest choice I've ever seen and made it over and over and over again and called it love. She proposed to me at my own birthday party, got down on one knee in front of my entire family, and 2 days later I found out the baby wasn't even mine. Actually, it gets worse. It wasn't his either. So, my girlfriend cheated on me with a wealthy DJ, got pregnant, couldn't pin down who the father was out of at least 4 different men, and then tried to convince me to just raise the baby anyway because I was, and I quote, already here. When I refused, her entire world collapsed, like the house of cards she'd been building for months. I'm 27 male. My girlfriend was me at 25, and I genuinely believe she was the first woman who ever loved me with her whole heart. Then there was the DJ, some rich guy in his 30s who funded Mia's designer lifestyle until he realized he wasn't the only one funding it. This is how it all started. Mia and I met through mutual friends at a cookout 2 summers ago. She was the kind of woman who made you feel like the only person in the room. Not in a flashy way, she'd just listen. Really listen. She'd remember the small things I said weeks later and bring them up like she'd been holding them close. After a string of relationships where I felt like I was performing for women who were always halfway out the door, Mia felt like finally coming home. We moved in together after 6 months. Too fast, maybe, but everything with her felt urgent and right. We talked about building something real, and within a year, we decided to open a small food truck together. We pulled our savings mine from years of working in logistics, hers from bartending, and for 3 months it actually worked. Then it didn't. Equipment costs spiraled. Permits got delayed. A supplier ghosted us with $2,000 of our money. By the time we shut it down, we were broke in a way that made your chest tight every time you opened your banking app. That's when Mia said she'd pick up a second job. She landed a position as a mixologist at this upscale restaurant downtown. The kind of place with dim lighting and $40 cocktails and men in watches that cost more than my car. I was proud of her. I told her that. She smiled and said, "I'm doing this for us." The first month was fine. She'd come home tired, smelling like citrus and expensive cologne from the clientele, and we'd eat leftovers on the couch and fall asleep watching something stupid on Netflix. Normal. Hours. Then the shifts got longer. She started coming home at 2, 3 in the morning. Some nights she didn't come home at all. The manager asked me to close, she'd say. Or I crashed at my coworker Steph's place because I was too tired to drive. I never questioned it. I'd just pull the blanket back for her when she finally slid into bed. Then the gifts started appearing. A Gucci handbag on the kitchen counter one Tuesday. I picked it up, turned it over. The leather was soft in a way that whispered money. Where'd this come from? Tips have been insane lately, Mia said without looking up from her phone. I treated myself. A week later, Louboutin heels, then a Cartier bracelet, then a new phone. Each time I raised an eyebrow, she had an answer ready. A bonus. A gift from a generous female customer who loved her drinks. A sale she'd found online. The explanations came so smoothly that doubting them felt like doubting her, and doubting her felt like being the kind of jealous, insecure man I'd promised myself I'd never become. So I swallowed it. Every single time. One evening, I picked up her phone to check the time mine was dead, and a WhatsApp notification slid down from the top of the screen. No name saved, just a number. The preview read, Times. Wore that dress for me tonight, asterisk. My stomach dropped like an elevator with its cables cut. I opened the chat. The messages went back weeks. Photos of Mia in outfits I'd never seen. Photos of a penthouse balcony overlooking the city. Voice notes I couldn't bring myself to play. And a name she used for him in conversation, a DJ so well known in our city that even I recognized it. He'd been buying her everything. The bags, the shoes, the bracelet, all of it. When Mia walked through the door that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone face up between us. She looked at the screen. Then she looked at me. And she laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not guilty laughter. She laughed like I'd told a joke she found mildly amusing. You went through my phone. Who is he, Mia? He's nobody. He buys me things. That's it. That's it. He buys me things and I let him. That's the arrangement. You want me to feel bad about that? She picked up the phone and dropped it in her purse. We're broke. Remember? Or did you forget whose food truck idea put us here? That one landed exactly where she aimed it. So, you'd rather have his gifts than what? Your pride. She tilted her head. Baby, his gifts pay our bills. Your pride doesn't. I packed a bag that night and drove to my cousin's apartment across town. I didn't cry. I just drove with both hands on the wheel and a hollow ringing in my ears, like something had detonated inside my skull. Distancing myself from her like that was not something I was used to. A second week passed, and I still didn't hear from her. Meanwhile, she constantly posted on Facebook and WhatsApp and didn't look like she missed me. In the third week, just when I decided to go back home and confront her, Mia called me. When she called me, she sounded very different and asked me to come home so we could iron things out between us. Eventually, I went home that day, and as soon as I stepped inside her house, she hugged me tightly. Once we settled down, Mia began to tell me how selfish and stupid she had been, and she was sorry for hurting my feelings with her actions. She told me she returned all the gifts because she realized what we had was worth more than any expensive gift. I was so relieved to hear that, and I held her face in my hands and told her we'd figure everything out together. Then she told me she was pregnant. She said it softly like a confession, and a gift wrapped into one sentence. My eyes blurred. I pulled her into me so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my ribs. A baby. Our baby. This was the reset. This was the universe telling us the worst was over. Over the next few weeks, Mia became the woman I'd fallen in love with, multiplied by 10. She cooked for me. She planned nursery colors. She told my mother before I could. And on the night of my 27th birthday, in front of my parents, my cousins, my closest friends, she got down on one knee with a ring she said she'd been saving for and asked me to marry her. The room erupted. My mother cried. I said yes before she even finished the question. 2 days later, I was lying in bed when I heard Mia whispering into her phone in the bathroom. She ended the call the second the door creaked open. Who was that? Wrong number, she said. She smiled. But her hands were shaking. That night after she fell asleep, I reached for her phone. Her passcode hadn't changed. Part of me wondered if she'd forgotten to update it or if she simply didn't think I'd ever look again. The arrogance of that almost stopped me. Almost. I opened WhatsApp. The DJ's number was still there, but now it had a name saved. Just initials. I tapped it. The first message I read was from him times, so he actually said yes to the proposal, asterisk. Mia's reply times, told you he would. He's not going anywhere now. Asterisk. I scrolled. My thumb moved slow, deliberate the way you'd turn pages of something you know is going to gut you, but you need to see every word. The conversation laid it out like a blueprint. The pregnancy wasn't mine. It was the DJ's. Mia had known for weeks before she called me back to the apartment. She'd gone to him first, told him. He'd offered money but made it crystal clear he wasn't leaving his lifestyle for a baby. So Mia pivoted. She came back to me with tears and apologies and a belly full of another man's child, and she repackaged the whole thing as redemption. The proposal wasn't love. It was a padlock. There were voice notes. I played one with the volume barely above silence, her phone pressed to my ear while she slept 3 feet away. His voice times, as long as he thinks it's his, I'll send what I send. But keep my name out of it. Asterisk. Her voice casual, almost bored times. He won't ask questions. He's not that type. Asterisk. He's not that type. I set the phone down on the nightstand screen facing down. I stared at the ceiling for a long time. The fan turned in slow circles. Mia's breathing was steady beside me, the kind of deep, unbothered sleep that belongs to someone who believes their plan is working. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her. I got up, walked to the kitchen, drank a glass of water standing over the sink, and went back to bed. For the next 3 weeks, I was a ghost wearing my own skin. I went to work. I came home. I sat across from her at dinner while she talked about baby names and wedding venues, and I nodded in all the right places. She'd reach for my hand and I'd let her take it. But something behind my eyes had gone dark, and she started to notice. "You've been distant," she said one evening, her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Just tired." "You're always tired now. Work's been heavy." She watched me for a beat too long, then went back to eating. She didn't push it. Pushing it would have meant risking the structure she'd built, and Mia was too smart for that. On a Sunday morning, I sat on the edge of the bed and said it. "I want a paternity test." The silence that followed had a texture. Thick, pressurized, like the air before a storm cell breaks. Mia turned from the mirror where she'd been moisturizing her face. Her hands were still glistening. "What?" "A paternity test. Before the baby comes." "Why would you?" Her voice cracked. Not from sadness. From calculation breaking down in real time. "Why would you ask me that?" "Because I need to know." "You do know. You know this is your baby. You know that. Then the test shouldn't be a problem." That's when the performance started. Tears first instant heavy rolling down her cheeks like she turned on a faucet. Then the accusations. I was paranoid. I was toxic. I was punishing her for the DJ situation that she'd already apologized for. Then insults. I was weak. I was pathetic. No wonder she'd looked elsewhere. Then back to tears, a full cycle in under 5 minutes. I watched all of it like a man watching weather through a window. "I'll be gone by morning," I said. "You're not going anywhere." "I already know, Mia." She stopped. Mid-sentence, mid-breath. Her mouth stayed open, but nothing came out. I watched the exact moment she understood that the walls she'd built weren't keeping me in anymore. They were closing in on her. That night I packed while she sat on the couch staring at nothing. I didn't take everything, just what mattered. At the door I left a note on the counter. 4 sentences. I told her I'd read the messages. I told her I knew about the DJ, the money arrangement, the plan to pass off the baby as mine. I told her not to call me. She called 11 times before sunrise. On the 12th call, 2 days later, I answered. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear her say it out loud so the last thread of doubt could finally snap. What she said was worse than anything I'd imagined. "It's not his either." "What?" "The DJ. He did his own test. It's not his baby." Her voice was flat now, stripped of performance. "He's gone. Blocked me on everything." "Then whose is it?" A long pause. I could hear her breathing ragged and wet. "I don't know." There were others. 4 maybe. I don't know which one. I pulled the phone away from my ear. Her voice kept going tinny and small like something trapped in a jar. I brought it back. "You could still be the father. You could just be the father. You don't need a test to be a dad. You just need to show up. Please. I'm alone. Everyone left. Steph won't talk to me. My girls found out, and they please. Just come back. You don't even have to love me. Just be here." I listened to every word. I owed myself that hearing the full shape of what I'd almost built my life around. Then I hung up. And I blocked her number. The last thing I heard through mutual friends was that the DJ had already moved cities. 2 of the 4 men she'd named denied ever being with her. Her coworker, Steph, had told their entire social circle the truth after Mia tried to borrow money using the pregnancy as leverage. Her friends didn't leave all at once. They left in a slow, disgusted trickle, the way people back away from someone they realized they never actually knew. Mia was left exactly where her own architecture led alone, unemployed, pregnant, by a man she couldn't identify with. Every safety net she'd woven from other people's trust finally unraveled beneath her. I think about it sometimes. Not her. The version of me that sat at that kitchen table the first time and swallowed the lie because the alternative meant admitting that the one person who felt like home was just a house with no foundation. That man doesn't exist anymore. I made sure of it. My husband smashed cake into my face at our wedding, knowing full well that the last person who did that gave me a scar on my forehead. He did it to impress my mother, the same mother who gave me that scar. So I left my own wedding in an Uber, wearing a frosting-covered dress filed for an annulment, and then his sister decided to tell me he'd been cheating on me for 6 months. Every single person I trusted showed me who they really were in the span of about 12 hours. I'm 27. My now ex-husband is Marcus. He's 29. My mother is Diane, and she's the reason I have a boundary about cake in the first place. Tanya is Marcus's sister, who apparently knew about the cheating the entire time. And Jess is my best friend, basically the only person I have left. Let me tell you about the scar first, because that's where everything starts. I was turning 17. Diane had promised times she wouldn't do the cake thing. Every year since I was maybe 8, it was her favorite party trick. Grab the back of my head, slam my face into whatever cake was in front of me and laugh, while I came up sputtering with frosting in my eyelashes. The whole family thought it was hilarious. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone howling while I stood there with buttercream in my nostrils, trying to smile so nobody would call me dramatic. But 17 was supposed to be different. I'd begged her the night before. Actually begged sitting on the edge of her bed while she scrolled through her phone. Please, Mom, not this year. I just want to blow out the candles like a normal person. She looked at me over her reading glasses. You're so sensitive. Fine, I won't touch your precious cake. The cake was from a bakery. 3 tiers because Diane liked to perform generosity in public. It had these decorative sugar flowers on top with wire stem stiff little metal pieces that held the petals in place. I remember thinking it was the most beautiful cake I'd ever had. I leaned in to blow out the candles. I felt her hand on the back of my skull before I even finished my wish. She drove my face straight down into the top tier. One of those wire stems caught me right above my left eyebrow and dragged a 2-inch gash across my forehead. I came up bleeding into the frosting, and for about 3 seconds the room was dead silent. Then Diane started laughing. Oh, stop it, it's barely a scratch. My aunt handed me a paper towel. Not a clean cloth, not ice, a paper towel. And the party continued. I got 4 stitches at urgent care. Diane told the nurse I'd tripped. I sat there watching her lie with dried frosting still crusted in my hair, and I thought, times, when I leave this house, I'm never letting anyone do that to me again. Asterisk. The scar faded but never disappeared. It sits just above my eyebrow, slightly raised, slightly lighter than the rest of my skin. I touch it sometimes without thinking, a little ridge that reminds me what promises from that woman are worth. I told Marcus about it on our 3rd date. We were watching videos on his phone, stupid stuff, memes, fail compilations, and one of those wedding cake smash videos came up. Bride gets a fistful of frosting shoved into her face, groom doubles over, laughing comments full of crying, laughing emojis. Marcus thought it was hilarious. I didn't laugh. He noticed. And I told him everything. Diane, the wire stem, the stitches, the paper towel. I showed him the scar. He ran his thumb over it and said, "That's messed up. I'd never do that to you." Then, maybe a year later, another cake smash video. He showed it to me grinning, and I felt my stomach drop. Marcus, I need you to hear me. If you ever smash cake in my face, ever, I will leave you. I don't care if it's our wedding. I don't care if everyone's watching. I will walk out, and I will not come back. He put his hands up. Babe, relax. I would never... I should have listened to the Times relax, asterisk. Jess told me later she always flinched when he said that word to me. That's what people say when they want you to shrink, she said. But I didn't hear it then. I heard safety. I heard a man who was nothing like my mother. The wedding was exactly what I'd spent my whole life wanting. I planned every detail like I was building a house I'd actually get to live in. Ivory linens. Candlelight. A string quartet during the ceremony, because I dreamed about that since I was 15. The cake was simple, 2 tiers, white fondant, real peonies on top. No wire, no sugar decorations. I'd chosen it carefully, and if that sounds paranoid, you now understand why. The ceremony was perfect. Marcus cried during his vows. I believed every word. The reception was loud and warm and full of people I thought loved me. Diane was there being her best public self, hugging me, telling everyone how proud she was, performing the role of devoted mother so convincingly that I almost let myself believe it. We cut the cake together. Cameras everywhere. I was smiling so hard my face ached. Then I felt his hand leave the knife. I felt it before I understood it, a fistful of cake, wet and heavy, slamming into the side of my face. Frosting in my eye, up my nose, smeared across the scar on my forehead. The exact same sensation. The exact same helplessness. Marcus was laughing. That big, open-mouthed laugh he does when he's performing for a room. You should see your face, he said. And behind him, I could hear Diane Times howling times with laughter, clapping her hands together, and I heard her voice cut through the noise. See? She's fine. She's always been too sensitive. The room was laughing. My family was laughing. His family was laughing. I stood there in my wedding dress with frosting dripping off my chin, and I touched the scar above my eyebrow, and something inside me clicked shut like a lock. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I set down my champagne glass, picked up my phone from the head table, and opened the Uber app. My hands were shaking so badly, it took 3 tries to type the address. Jess found me outside. What are you doing? Leaving. Okay, she said. No argument. No times are you sure, asterisk. Just. Okay, I'll get your bag from the hotel room. Call me when you're somewhere safe. The Uber driver looked at me in his rearview mirror, poofy white dress mascara running frosting smeared across my bodice, and to his credit, he said absolutely nothing. He just drove. My phone started buzzing before we hit the highway. Marcus. Diane. Numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it face down on the seat and watched the venue shrink in the side mirror. I didn't pick up the phone until the next morning, and that's when I found out the cake wasn't even the worst part. I picked up the phone at 6:47 a.m., still in my wedding dress. I'd fallen asleep on Jess's couch without changing because taking it off felt like admitting the day had actually happened. The bodice was stiff with dried frosting. It crackled when I sat up. 32 missed calls. 14 texts from Marcus escalating from confused to angry to something that was supposed to sound like concern but read like a man upset his audience had noticed the bride disappearing. I called him back. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me was still waiting for the apology that would make it make sense. He picked up on the first ring. Finally. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? You just times left asterisk. In front of everyone. My mom was, you smashed cake in my face. It was a times joke, times babe. Everyone does it at weddings. You completely overreacted and made me look, you knew. I told you what she did to me. I showed you the scar. I told you I would leave. Silence? Then, why should I have to apologize because you can't take a joke? My hand was pressing against the scar. I didn't realize I was doing it until I felt the ridge under my fingertip. Marcus. Why did you do it? More silence. Longer this time. Then he said something that rearranged every memory I had of him. Your mom said it would be funny. She said you'd laugh about it later, that you always make a big deal out of nothing and then get over it. She said it would show her family that I'm not. He stopped. Not what? She said her side of the family thought I was too soft, that I let you control everything. She said if I did the cake thing, it would show them I wasn't whipped. I held the phone away from my ear and stared at it like it was something dead. Then I brought it back. You did it to impress Vase's Diane. I did it because your family already thinks I'm... You chose my mother over me. The woman who times scarred times me. You chose her. You're being. Say times dramatic asterisk. Say times sensitive asterisk. Go ahead. Use her exact words. You've been using them for years, and I just didn't hear it. He started talking faster the way he always did when he felt the room turning against him. Look, just come home and we'll figure this out. You're my times wife, asterisk. You can't just... I'm getting an annulment. Over times, cake times, you're going to throw away our entire... I hung up. My thumb was trembling so badly I almost missed the button. The calls came in waves after that. Coordinated, like they'd all gotten together and assigned shifts. Diane first. Of course. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. I listened to it once and then deleted it, but I can still recite it from memory because certain sentences burn themselves into you like brands. You are going to die alone. You know that, right? You push away everyone who tries to love you. Your looks are going to run out fast, and when they do, no one will want you. No one. You'll be alone, and you'll deserve it. Her voice was calm, almost cheerful. The voice of a woman who'd been waiting years for her daughter's happiness to crack so she could pour herself into the fracture. Then Tanya. Tanya, who I'd thought was my friend. Who I'd taken shopping for her bridesmaid dress. Who I'd sat with on Marcus's parents' porch drinking wine and talking about our futures like we were sisters. She called me a disgusting bitch. Those were her exact words. Said I was hurting her brother, wasting his time. That she wished he would have broken up with me 2 years ago when he first wanted to. That sentence landed like a slap. Asterisk. 2 years ago when he first wanted to. Asterisk. Then, and I think she did this because she figured the bridge was already burning and she might as well use the gasoline, she told me he'd been cheating on me 6 months with his ex who'd wanted him back. The ex eventually dropped him because he stayed with me, but for 6 months he'd been sleeping with someone else while I was picking out peonies for our wedding cake. Tanya knew. The whole time. She knew, and she sat across from me at brunch and complimented my engagement ring and never said a word. I guess she put everything out on the table since I was leaving anyway. I blocked them in order. Marcus first, then Diane, then Tanya, then aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who'd laughed while frosting dripped off my chin. Everyone who'd laughed when I was 17 Everyone who'd handed me a paper towel instead of protecting me. My contact list got very short very fast. Jess came home that afternoon with a bag of my clothes she'd somehow retrieved from the hotel room. She set it by the couch and sat down next to me. "You okay?" He was cheating on me. She closed her eyes, let out a breath. "I know this isn't the right time to say this. You saw something." I saw times, enough asterisk. I didn't have proof. I didn't want to be wrong and lose you. Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. Don't. You're the only person who doesn't owe me an apology." She said I could stay with her for a few months until I got back on my feet. No timeline, no pressure. I filed for the annulment on Tuesday. The paperwork was surprisingly thin for the demolition of an entire life. I started therapy 3 weeks later. My therapist said something in our second session that I haven't stopped thinking about. You didn't marry someone different from your mother. You married someone your mother trained you to accept. Marcus never hit me. He never screamed. He just dismissed me gently, warmly, with that easy smile every time I tried to tell him who I was. And I mistook that gentleness for safety, because I'd only ever known the loud version of being ignored. I don't have a triumphant ending. I have a couch in my best friend's apartment and a therapist I see on Thursdays and a contact list with 4 names in it. I have a wedding dress in a garbage bag in Jess's closet that I can't bring myself to throw away or look at. I have a scar above my eyebrow that I touch every morning like a rosary. I have almost no one. But for the first time in my life, every person who's left actually gives a damn whether I'm okay. That's not a happy ending. But it's a clean one. And clean is more than I've ever had. I kept my wife's secret life hidden for 7 years, not because she asked me to, but because innocent people would have gotten hurt. She mistook my silence for weakness. That was the last mistake I'll let her make. So here's the short version. I discovered my spouse had been living an entire parallel existence. We're talking years of hidden encounters, secret content, the works. And instead of blowing it all up, I went quiet, engineered my exit. Over 4 months of living together like nothing was wrong, and offered her one deal. Silence for silence. She couldn't take it. Now the only thing standing between her and total exposure is a thread she won't stop pulling. I'm in my early 30s, male. My ex-wife is Vanessa, 32, and the most meticulous liar I've ever shared a bed with. Before her there was Claire, my first ex, who taught me what betrayal felt like at a beginner level. And then there's Mia, who came along later and proved to me that not everyone operates like that. But this story isn't really about any of them. This story is about what happens when you give someone everything they wanted, and the only price was leaving you alone, and they still couldn't do it. Let me back up, because you need to understand what I thought I was walking away from versus what I actually found. Claire was my training ground. Married young, divorced younger. She left for someone she said could provide stability, which was code for a guy who paid for things while she figured out who she wanted to be that week. It stung. It scarred. But it was simple betrayal, the kind you can explain over a beer, and your buddy nods because he's seen it before. Claire taught me that people leave. That was the whole lesson. Vanessa taught me that some people never leave. They just build a second life and let you fund the first one. We met 2 years after Claire. I was cautious. Vanessa was patient. She had this way of making you feel like the only source of gravity in her universe. Everything orbited you. Date nights were sacred. She remembered details about my childhood I'd mentioned once in passing half asleep. She'd text me during work just to say she was thinking about me, not performatively, not with the desperate frequency of someone overcompensating, just enough. Always exactly enough. We married after 18 months, bought a place together, built routines. I thought I'd figured out the formula, find someone who shows up consistently, who doesn't make you guess, who treats your vulnerability like something worth protecting. Vanessa did all of that. For 7 years, she did all of that. The discovery wasn't dramatic. No lipstick on a collar, no suspicious phone buzzing at 2 a.m. It was a browser tab. She'd been using my laptop, hers was updating, and when I opened it later that evening, there it was. A dashboard. Not a dating app. A Times platform asterisk. Subscriber counts, earnings history message threads going back years. Content I won't describe here, but I'll say this, I was not in any of it, and the timestamps predated our wedding. My hands didn't shake. That's the part that still unsettles me. I sat there at the kitchen island, her laughter floating in from the living room where she was watching some cooking show, and my hands were perfectly still. I clicked through everything with the calm of someone reading a quarterly report. Subscriber messages, revealed names revealed social media profiles revealed couples times, married times couples. She'd been meeting for group encounters going back to before our first anniversary. Some of these people had kids. Some of them were in our broader social circle. I closed the laptop. I made us both tea. I brought hers to the couch and sat beside her and watched the rest of that cooking show, and laughed when she laughed, and went to bed at our usual time and lay there in the dark while she fell asleep with her hand on my chest. I did not sleep that night. Or the next 3. Here's what people don't understand about discovery like this. The betrayal isn't the worst part. The worst part is the times recalculation asterisk. Every memory gets audited. Every business trip, every girls' weekend, every Thursday evening yoga class that ran long, all of it feeds back through this new filter, and the math changes on 7 years of your life in about 45 minutes. You don't grieve the person. You grieve the person you thought existed. I made my decision by day 4. I would leave. But I would leave times correctly, asterisk. The house was in both our names, but the mortgage was structured in a way that gave me leverage. I spent 2 weeks with a lawyer before I said a single word to Vanessa. I got my exit architecture in place, sole ownership, transfer, financial separation, the works, and then I told her I knew. Not everything. I told her I'd found the content platform. I left out the names, the couples, the depth. I wanted to see what she'd volunteer. She volunteered tears. Magnificent, shuddering, full-body tears. She grabbed my forearms and her nails, left half moons in my skin, and she said, "It was just money. It didn't mean anything I was going to tell you." When I was times working up to it, asterisk. For 7 years. Silence. Then more crying. Then the pivot I'd been waiting for. I'll stop. I already stopped. I deleted everything. She hadn't. I checked that morning. What followed was 4 months of cohabitation that I can only describe as living inside a performance. Vanessa cycled through every mode, sobbing penitent, angry accuser, seductive reconciler, cold roommate, sobbing penitent again. She'd leave handwritten letters on my pillow. She'd cook my favorite meals and set the table for 2 with candles. She'd corner me in the hallway at midnight, eyes swollen, voice cracking. "You can't just times shut me out, times I'm still your wife." I kept my voice level every single time. I ate the meals, I read the letters, I slept in the guest room, and I worked the plan. The papers were nearly ready. The house transfer was almost finalized. I'd severed myself financially from every joint account, every shared obligation, every thread that tethered me to her. And then, on a Tuesday evening in month 3, Vanessa sat across from me at the kitchen island, the same island where I'd first found everything, and said something that made every muscle in my back go rigid. I told my mother, "You've been having mental health episodes. Just so you know. In case you were thinking about talking to anyone about us." In case you were thinking about talking to anyone about us, she said it while peeling an orange, casual, like she was mentioning a change in the weather. The rind came off in one long spiral, and she separated a segment and ate it, and looked at me with eyes that had absolutely nothing behind them. I understood then fully cellularly that I had never known this woman. "Noted," I said. That was the last real conversation we had under the same roof. The final 6 weeks were surgical. I finished the paperwork. I secured sole ownership. I packed while she was at work, not because I was hiding, but because I was done performing proximity. On the day I left, I placed the settlement agreement on the kitchen island with a single post-it note, asterisk, asterisk, silence for silence. This is the only deal. Asterisk, asterisk. The terms were simple. I would never disclose what I'd found. Not the platform, not the names, not the couples with children who'd been part of her parallel life. In return, she would never contact me again. No calls, no texts, no messages through friends, no narrative campaigns. Complete and permanent severance. Vanessa signed it the same day. Her lawyer called mine and said she was relieved and grateful for his discretion. That relief lasted 11 days. The first breach was soft. A mutual friend, Derek, called to check in with a tone so rehearsed I could hear the stage directions. He mentioned how times worried times Vanessa was about my state of mind. He used the phrase dark place twice. He asked if I'd considered talking to someone professional the way you'd suggest it to a man standing on a ledge. "Derek, did she tell you to call me?" Long pause. "She just cares about you, man." I hung up. I did not call back. The second breach was louder. My sister forwarded me a screenshot. Vanessa had messaged her on Instagram, expressing deep concern about my mental health, referencing episodes that never happened, asking my sister to keep an eye on him. My sister, to her credit, saw through it instantly. But the fact that Vanessa had reached into my times, family times, that she'd touched, that something shifted in my chest. A load-bearing wall developed its first crack. The third, fourth, and fifth breaches blurred together. A coworker mentioned that someone had reached out to HR to express concern about my well-being. A college friend I hadn't spoken to in years texted asking if I was okay. My gym buddy said Vanessa had shown up at his wife's book club, a book club she'd never attended, and spent 20 minutes painting a portrait of a man unraveling. She was building a preemptive defense. If I ever talked, I'd be the unstable ex-husband lashing out. She wasn't grieving. She was times constructing asterisk. Each time I said nothing publicly. Each time I contacted her lawyer with a formal notice of breach. Each time her lawyer assured mine it wouldn't happen again. It always happened again. Month 5, post-separation, I stopped tracking the breaches. Not because they stopped, but because counting them had become its own prison. I was living in a studio apartment across town, rebuilding from the studs, and every time I felt the floor solidify beneath me, another call would come. Another concerned voice, another whisper network she'd fed. The friends went first. I cut every mutual connection. Not with announcements, not with explanations, just silence. Phones unanswered. Invitations declined. I became a ghost in a social circle I'd spent 7 years building because every node in that network was a potential channel back to her. Then family. Her mother, who I genuinely loved, called me crying one night saying Vanessa was devastated and I was being cruel. I listened to the whole thing. I said, "I'm sorry, you're in pain. I hope she finds peace." I never picked up that number again. The loneliness of that period was architectural. It wasn't sadness. It was the experience of standing in a building after every wall has been removed. Wind moving through spaces that used to be rooms. Here's where I am now. I work as we speak out of country 4 months. But I'm coming back after, and we are moving into a house we've bought together and is being built as I type we, being me and Mia, who I met 14 months ago through the most unremarkable introduction imaginable. A friend of a friend. Coffee that turned into dinner that turned into a Tuesday morning where she looked at me across her kitchen and said, "You don't have to perform being okay. You can just be whatever you are right now." I can honestly say I have zero concern about what she's doing back home because I trust her fully, which I didn't think was possible to do again 3 years ago. I'm going to go home in 4 months, see her and my cat, and have an amazing Christmas, hopefully proposing in the new year. Things have moved quickly for us, and I honestly would have never given much thought to my ex. I don't think I realized how much I didn't think about her anymore until I was curating my Facebook about 3 months ago and saw a slew of old pictures of me and her together. I had removed everything about her previously, or so I thought. Turns out she unblocked herself from my account, I still don't know how, and had been viewing my posts, my photos with Mia, my new life. Watching, still orbiting. That's when I found out the Whisper campaign never stopped. It just went underground. New people, new stories. A version of me that exists in her telling volatile, broken, dangerous, walking around in the minds of people I've never met. So here's the calculus. I offered silence for silence. I held my end for 3 years. I protected names, marriages, families with children who don't know what their parents did on alternating Saturdays. I did that not for Vanessa. I did it for times them asterisk, but the deal is broken. She broke it so many times the document is confetti. And the song, every name, every timestamp, every couple who trusted the discretion of a stranger more than they trusted their own vows, that song is composed. It has been for years. I've just never pressed play. Vanessa had everything. Her secret life, her freedom, her narrative. All she had to do was walk away. She couldn't. Now the only question is whether I'm merciful enough to keep a promise that only one of us ever honored. I'm running out of reasons to say yes. My mother-in-law told me I disgraced her family's genetics by existing. At her husband's birthday party, in front of 40 relatives, while standing in a house I paid for. So here's the situation. My in-laws worship beauty like a religion, and I was their heresy. They lived rent-free in a home I bought, mocked me daily for my appearance, and when I finally asked for basic respect, they chose homelessness over apologizing. Then their golden child daughter dumped them in a care facility, and suddenly the ugly daughter-in-law was the only phone number worth dialing. I'm 31 female and apparently not pretty enough to deserve gratitude. My husband is Lior, 31, the only one in his family who sees people instead of faces. His mother is Vivian, 61, a woman who weaponized beauty her entire life. His father, Gerald, 65, enabled every cruel word. And his sister Nadine, 34, played the devoted daughter right up until devotion got inconvenient. The thing about marrying into the Ashford family is that nobody warns you. The audition never ends. I met Lior at a hospital fundraiser. I was there because I had organized it. He was there because his company had donated imaging equipment. He asked me to dinner that night, and I said yes, because he looked at me like I was already enough. I didn't know then that his family operated on an entirely different metric. Vivienne had been a catalog model in the 80s, not famous regional. Department store circulars, the occasional magazine spread for a mid-tier jewelry brand. But she'd built an identity around it that calcified into doctrine. Beauty was virtue. Beauty was proof of worth. She passed this gospel to Nadine, who inherited her mother's cheekbones and wielded them like credentials, and to Lior, who quietly rejected it and never told anyone why. The first time I met Vivienne, she held my face between her manicured fingers and turned it side to side like she was inspecting fruit at a market. Interesting bone structure, she said, which I later learned was the most generous thing she'd ever say about me. We married small. Vivienne wore black. The house situation started 2 years before Gerald's birthday party. Lior and I had been married for a year when his parents' financial situation collapsed. Gerald's investment portfolio imploded bad bets on speculative real estate, compounded by pride that prevented him from pulling out early. They were about to lose their home. Vivienne called Lior sobbing, and Lior called me. Here's what people don't understand. I didn't help because I was naive. I helped because my own parents taught me that family means showing up even when it costs you. My father had worked 32 years in municipal water management, so my mother could stay home with my disabled brother. Sacrifice wasn't abstract to me. It was Tuesday. I had savings, substantial savings earmarked for my parents' retirement care. I redirected 85% of it toward the EMI on a house in Vivienne and Gerald's neighborhood, a house Lior had been about to sell because he couldn't carry the payments alone. I covered it. We transferred ownership to my name because that was the legal reality of who was paying. And then we moved his parents in, rent-free, no questions asked. For 3 years, I said nothing. Not when Vivienne rearranged the furniture I'd chosen and told guests it was her home. Not when Gerald referred to me as Lior's wife instead of my name at family dinners, as if naming me would make my presence too real. Not when Nadine visited every other Sunday and the three of them would sit in the living room speaking French, a language I don't speak, while I prepared food in the kitchen. I said nothing because I believed grace was cumulative, that eventually the sheer weight of my kindness would crack something open in them. I was wrong. Gerald's 65th birthday. 42 relatives packed into the house. My house and Vivienne had spent 3 weeks planning it like a state dinner. I'd funded the catering. I'd taken 2 days off work to help set up. I was carrying a tray of hors d'oeuvres through the living room when I heard my name. Not my name. Or Vivienne called me when she thought I couldn't hear. That weird-looking girl has disgraced this family's genetics just by existing. Look at her. Look at my son. People ask me if she's his Times assistant, asterisk. Laughter. Not all 42 relatives. But enough. I stopped walking. The tray trembled in my hands. Vivienne saw me and didn't flinch. She time straightened, asterisk. Oh, good, you heard. Maybe now you'll understand why I keep asking Lior to reconsider. The room went silent. I set the tray down on the nearest table with a steadiness that surprised even me, and I walked out. Not dramatically. Not crying. I just left. I sat in my car for 40 minutes and stared at the steering wheel until my hands stopped shaking. That night, I told Lior I wanted the house back. He didn't hesitate. Not for 1 second. He called a family meeting the following weekend and laid it out, apologized to my wife, or vacate her property. Gerald intervened first. You don't have to be her puppet for that. You married her, and now she is doing her duty. Don't put her on a pedestal. Lior snapped. His voice cracked with something I'd never heard from him. Not anger exactly, but the sound of a man realizing his father had never once seen him clearly. I times respect times her for everything, and you should also respect her because she has let you live in her house for the last 3 years and never said a word. The silence that followed was surgical. They were shocked to know the house was mine. Lior told them the truth, that he'd been about to sell when I saved it, paid for 85% of the EMI, and that he'd transferred ownership to my name because it was the right thing to do. They didn't apologize. They didn't even blink toward remorse. Lior asked them directly. Apologize to her. Vivienne's lip curled. A times simp, asterisk. My own son, a simp. It was her duty to help her husband at bad times. That's what wives do. That's not charity. That's obligation. Gerald nodded. Nadine on speakerphone said nothing, which was its own kind of vote. Then leave, Lior said quietly. And they did. Vivienne packed 3 suitcases, Gerald loaded them into Nadine's car, and they drove away from a house they didn't own toward a daughter whose devotion had an expiration date they couldn't yet read. 2 weeks of silence followed. Then, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, I woke to the sound of shattering glass. The front window of the living room. A brick wrapped in a page torn from one of Vivienne's old modeling composites her face at 23 jaw, tilted eyes full of a confidence that had curdled into cruelty over 40 years. No note. None was needed. Lior found me standing in the hallway in bare feet glass, glittering across the hardwood like scattered teeth. He pulled me back before I stepped forward. "Don't move," he said, and his voice was the voice of a man who had just understood something final. The police came. Filed a report. Insufficient evidence, they said, though. The composite page told its own story. 2 nights later, my father, who had been staying with us while we prepared his room, found Gerald standing on the sidewalk at dusk, staring at the house. Not approaching. Just standing. My father, 71 years old with a replaced hip and a heart condition, went outside to ask if he needed something. Gerald told him his daughter had married above her station, and that the house would come back to the Ashfords one way or another. My father came inside and sat down at the kitchen table and didn't speak for an hour. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were wet, and he said, "I didn't raise you to be treated like this." That sentence broke something in me that Vivienne's public humiliation hadn't, because my father had never once complained. Not when he worked double shifts. Not when my brother's care costs consumed every vacation they might have taken. He had absorbed difficulty like soil absorbs rain, quietly, completely. And now, this man who had earned every ounce of peace I was trying to give him was being terrorized on a sidewalk by someone whose mortgage I had paid. I filed for the restraining order the next morning. The renovation took 3 months. I gutted the bathroom on the ground floor and rebuilt it with grab bars, a walk-in shower, a seat. I widened the door frames. I installed a ramp at the side entrance. Every modification was a sentence in a language Vivienne would never understand. Times, "This is what love looks like when it isn't performed for an audience." Asterisk. My father moved in on a Saturday. He stood in the doorway of his room and touched the wall like he was confirming it was real. "This is mine," he asked. "This is yours." He unpacked a single framed photo of my mother, gone 4 years now, and set it on the nightstand, and that was enough. That was the whole ceremony. Lior severed contact with his parents formally, not through a dramatic phone call, through a letter handwritten 3 paragraphs long. I didn't read it. He didn't offer, but when he sealed the envelope, his hands were steady and his jaw was set in a way that told me the decision had been made long before the pen touched paper. The boy who had quietly rejected his mother's gospel of beauty had finally said so out loud. A year passed. I learned what happened next, not from Lior, not from Vivienne, or Gerald, but from a cousin of Lior's named Mark, who called one evening with the careful tone people use when delivering news they find both terrible and inevitable. Nadine had moved her parents into Cedar Brook Assisted Living. Not gradually, not after a medical event. She'd simply informed them one morning that the arrangement wasn't working. Her boyfriend didn't like the tension, her apartment was too small, their presence was affecting her energy. She drove them to the facility, signed the intake paperwork, and left before lunch. Mark said Gerald had stood in the lobby holding his suitcase looking at the door Nadine had walked through and hadn't moved for 15 minutes. I set the phone down after the call and sat with the information. I expected to feel vindicated. I searched for it, that hot, righteous bloom of times I told you so, asterisk. It wasn't there. What I felt instead was a dull, familiar ache. The same ache I'd felt carrying that tray through the living room. The same ache I'd felt sitting in my car for 40 minutes. Not anger. Grief for people who couldn't stop destroying the bridges they stood on. Lior took it harder. He didn't cry. He went for a run at 10 o'clock at night and came back an hour later and stood in the shower until the water went cold. I didn't ask. I just left a towel on the hook and the hallway light on. Mark told me one more thing. Vivienne in the facility had been heard telling another resident that her son had been stolen by an ugly woman who tricked him and brought him to the streets, that the house had been taken from them, that they were victims of ingratitude. She was still performing, still curating the narrative. Even in a room she didn't choose surrounded by bodies that time, was softening and folding and diminishing the very process she'd spent a lifetime treating as moral failure she could not stop. Gerald, Mark said, mostly sat by the window. I asked Mark if they'd ever mentioned apologizing. He went quiet long enough that I knew the answer. No, he said, not once. I thanked him and hung up. That night I checked on my father. He was asleep in his accessible room in the house I'd paid for under a roof that nobody would take from him. My mother's photo watched from the nightstand. The grab bars gleamed faintly in the hallway light. I closed his door gently and stood there for a moment, my hand still on the knob. The Ashfords had worshipped beauty like it was a savings account, something that would compound and protect them. But beauty doesn't compound. it spends. And when it's gone, what's left is only what you built with your hands and your choices and your willingness to love people who couldn't love you back. I had built this. They had built Cedarbrook. And the ugliest thing in the whole story was that they would never ever see it. My husband sat me down and told me I needed to quit my job to babysit his grandchild. A grandchild I never agreed to raise in a house I don't even own, while his 25-year-old daughter refuses daycare, refuses a nanny, refuses child support, and refuses to adjust her own schedule. But somehow I'm the selfish one for saying no. So I packed everything I own into my car and drove away from a marriage I'm now realizing was never actually a partnership. I'm a 38-year-old woman, proudly child-free, or at least I was until my life got hijacked. My husband is Sam 47, father of the year to everyone except me. And then there's Leah, his 25-year-old daughter, pregnant, freshly dumped, and absolutely convinced I owe her my entire future. Let me rewind to how this started, because it didn't begin with a bomb. It began with a whisper. Sam and I met 3 years ago at a friend's retirement party. He was charming, attentive, chivalrous in a way that felt almost anachronistic, opening doors, pulling out chairs, insisting on walking curbside on the sidewalk. I told him on our second date that I was child-free, not on the fence. Not waiting for the right person to change my mind. Done. Decided. Permanent. He nodded, like I'd told him my favorite color. I already raised mine, he said. I'm not looking for a do-over. I married him 11 months later. Leah was 22 then, living with her boyfriend across town. She was polite to me in the way people are polite to hotel staff, pleasant enough, zero emotional investment. I didn't push it. I wasn't trying to be her mother. She had one, a woman named Claire who died when Leah was 16 and whose ghost occupied every family photo on every wall in Sam's house. I respected that grief. I didn't rearrange the photos. I didn't redecorate. I moved into Sam's home because it made financial sense. His mortgage was nearly paid off, my apartment lease was ending, and I kept my own savings, my own retirement accounts, my own career as a project manager at a logistics firm. My name never went on the deed. Sam said we'd get around to it. We never got around to it. I should have heard the ticking then. I didn't. 8 months ago, Leah showed up at our door on a Tuesday night, mascara streaked to her jawline, a duffel bag in one hand, and a positive pregnancy test in the other. Her boyfriend, whose name I will not dignify by remembering, had responded to the news of impending fatherhood by moving to another state. Literally. Packed while she was at work and left a note on the kitchen counter like a coward leaving a restaurant review. Sam pulled her inside, held her, and looked at me over her shoulder with an expression I'd never seen before. Not a request, a declaration. She's staying. Of course, I said, because I'm not a monster. She needed her father. She needed stability. I understood that. The first 2 months were fine. Leah was quiet, kept to herself, worked her job at a marketing agency, and attended her prenatal appointments. I drove her to 2 of them when Sam couldn't. I bought prenatal vitamins without being asked. I was trying. I want that on the record, I was trying. Then the conversation started. It was Sam, first casual over dinner. Leah's been thinking about what happens after the baby comes. Childcare is so expensive these days. I agreed. Childcare is expensive. I suggested she look into the subsidized daycare program her employer partnered with. Sam's fork paused midair. She's not comfortable with strangers watching her baby. I suggested a nanny. Someone vetted someone with references. She doesn't want a stranger in the house. I suggested Leah reduce her hours worked part-time, maybe remote. She just got promoted. She can't step back now. Every door I opened, he closed. And each time he closed one, the room got smaller. Then came the real ask. Not from Sam, from Leah, sitting across from me at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug of decaf belly round at 7 months' eyes, that same devastating shade of Claire's from the photos on the wall. Would you be willing to watch the baby during the day, just while I'm at work? My throat tightened. Leah, I work full-time. I know. But you could go remote, or maybe take a break. Dad said you've talked about slowing down. I had never said that. Not once. I looked at Sam, who was leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, and his eyes slid away from mine like oil off glass. I haven't talked about slowing down, I said carefully. It would just be temporary, Sam said. How temporary? Silence. I asked about child support. Leah's jaw hardened. I'm not dragging him through court. He'll come back. He just needs time. She was still in love with him. The man who left via post-it note. She was designing her entire childcare plan around the fantasy of his return, and I was supposed to sacrifice my career to hold the scaffolding in place while she waited. I laid it out plainly. If I quit my job, I lose my income, my 401k contributions, my professional momentum. I asked Sam directly, would he match my retirement contributions? Would he add me to the deed? Would he put anything in writing that protected me financially? He stared at me like I'd asked him to notarize a love letter. You're my wife, he said. Why are you talking like a lawyer? Because I'm living in your house, Sam. Not ours. Yours. That landed. I watched it land. And I watched him choose not to pick it up. The next week, he refinanced the house to build out the basement into a nursery for Leah. He didn't tell me until the contractor showed up. That was Wednesday. By Friday, Leah was standing in my doorway with tears rolling down her face, and she said the thing I will never unhear. I just wish my mom was alive. I stood there in that doorway and let Leah's words wash over me like ice water. Asterisk. I just wish my mom was alive. Asterisk. She wasn't wrong. She probably did wish that. Claire would have dropped everything. Claire would have built her life around that grandbaby without a second thought, and she would have done it with joy, because that's what mothers do. When the math works out, when the house is theirs, when the family is theirs, when the sacrifice lands somewhere it can grow roots. But I am not Claire. I have never been Claire. And the fact that Leah said it to my face in my doorway, with tears calibrated to a frequency only guilt responds to, that wasn't grief. That was a weapon. I didn't respond. I closed the door softly, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall where Claire's wedding portrait still hung. Sam had never asked me if I wanted it there. I had never asked him to take it down. We had both been so careful, so accommodating, so polite, and politeness I was learning is just silence wearing a nice dress. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Sam and listened to him breathe and ran the numbers in my head like the project manager I am. If I quit, no income, no 401k match, no employer health insurance, my name on nothing. No deed, no legal protection, no written agreement. I'd be a 38-year-old woman with a gap on her resume, living in a house she doesn't own, raising a child she didn't choose for a stepdaughter who sees her as furniture with a pulse. And when the baby grows up, when Leah meets someone new or her ex crawls back with apologies and a ring, I'd be the woman who gave up everything and got a thank you card. Maybe. I got up at 5 a.m. Saturday morning. Sam was already in the kitchen, coffee made, sitting at the table with his reading glasses on and his laptop open, looking at nursery furniture. The basement renovation wasn't even finished, and he was already picking out cribs. We need to talk, I said. He closed the laptop, took off his glasses, folded his hands. The posture of a man preparing to manage a situation, not participate in one. I'm not quitting my job, Sam. Nobody's asking you to quit. Leah asked me to quit. You told her I talked about slowing down. I never said that. His jaw shifted. I said, you'd mention times it. I didn't. You said once that you were tired of the commute. Being tired of a commute is not the same as volunteering for full-time infant care. You know that. You times no times that. He exhaled through his nose, long and controlled. She's my daughter. She's scared. She's alone. I'm asking you as my wife to help my family. I am your family. Then act like it. The words hung between us like a blade. I felt something shift in my chest, not break, not yet, but times detach, asterisk. Like a cable pulling free from an anchor. If I do this, I said slowly, I need my name on the house. I need a postnuptial agreement. I need you to contribute to my retirement for every year I'm not working. In writing, notarized. Jesus Christ. You sound like a what? A lawyer. Good. Because you just refinanced this house without telling me, Sam. You made a 30-year financial decision about a property I live in but don't own, and you didn't even mention it until a stranger showed up with a sledgehammer. He stood up. I did that for my daughter. And what have you done for me? Silence. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the basement, the contractor's plastic sheeting rustled like something breathing. I married you, he said. I almost laughed. I think I did laugh, actually. A short, airless sound that tasted like rust. You married me and put me in a house with your dead wife's photos on every wall, no equity, no legal standing, and now you want me to quit my career to babysit your grandchild while your 25-year-old daughter refuses daycare, refuses a nanny, refuses child support, refuses to adjust her schedule, and refuses to accept that her ex left her. Every single solution exists, Sam. She just won't take any of them because each one means admitting he's gone. And you're enabling it because you can't stand to see her cry. Get out. It wasn't Sam. It was Leah standing at the top of the basement stairs in a bathrobe, one hand on her belly, face blotched and furious. You don't get to talk about my life like that. You're not my mother. You're not even. She stopped herself, but we all heard the ghost of the sentence. Asterisk. You're not even family. Asterisk. I looked at Sam. He looked at the floor. That was my answer. That was every answer I was ever going to get. I packed in 40 minutes. Everything I owned fit in my car and 2 suitcases, which tells you something about how little space I'd been allowed to occupy in 3 years of marriage. I called my friend from the driveway. She picked up on the second ring, heard 3 sentences, and said, "Come now. Guest room's ready." Sam followed me to the car. "You're being dramatic. We can figure this out. You refinanced a house I don't own to build a nursery for a grandchild you expect me to raise for free. There's nothing to figure out. She's my time's daughter, asterisk, and I was supposed to be your wife." I pulled out of the driveway at 11:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at the dashboard clock and thought, times. This is the minute my marriage ended times, and I wanted to remember it. By 2 p.m., both of them were blowing up my phone. Sam's text oscillated between guilt and fury. "Times you're abandoning us. This is what family does. You knew I had a daughter when you married me." Asterisk. Leah's were shorter, sharper times. Selfish. So, selfish. Asterisk. The projection was almost artistic. A man who wouldn't protect his wife's retirement, calling her selfish. A woman who won't pursue child support, won't accept daycare, won't hire a nanny, won't reduce her hours, won't acknowledge her ex is gone, calling times me times selfish. For having one boundary, the one I stated on our second date. Monday morning, I called a divorce attorney. She listened to the whole story, paused and said, "You don't own anything jointly." I said no. She said, "That actually simplifies things." I told her to go ham. And here's the part I keep turning over the beauty. The terrible clarifying beauty is that without me in that house, absorbing the pressure, Sam and Leah will eventually turn on each other. He can't be the full-time grandparent and keep his job. She can't maintain her career and her fantasy simultaneously. The scaffolding I was supposed to be. It was never going to hold. It was just going to collapse later instead of sooner, and I would have been underneath it. I'm staying at my friend's place. My job is intact. My savings are intact. My name is on nothing of his, which means he gets nothing of mine. I keep thinking about what Sam said on our second date. Asterisk, I already raised mine. I'm not looking for a do-over. Asterisk, he was right. He wasn't looking for a do-over. He was looking for a backup plan. I just didn't know I was it.
I should have known from the start. That's what everyone says, right? Hindsight is a bastard like that. When I met Anna, it was like the world switched from black and white to color. I was the quiet programmer, the guy who preferred a book to a bar. She was all laughter and bright red lipstick. A whirlwind who pulled me out of my shell and spun me around until I was dizzy and desperately in love. We were married within 6 months. A year after that, life was good, simple, predictable. I liked predictable. Then Ryan moved in. It started with a frantic, tearful phone call. Anna's uncle, her mom's brother, had died of a sudden heart attack. His son Ryan, her cousin, was a wreck. He was 25, same age as Anna, and had been living at home. Now the house had to be sold. He has nowhere to go, Sam, Anna said, her voice thick with grief. He's all alone. Can he just stay with us? Just for a little while until he gets on his feet. What was I supposed to say? No. Of course, he could stay. I squeezed her hand and told her we'd make it work. I felt for the guy. The red flag started waving the first night he was there. I walked in from work and the smell hit me immediately. A rich, garlicky, buttery smell that made my throat start to itch. Shrimp scampi. I'm allergic to shellfish. Not an I'll get a little rash allergy, but an I can't breathe, call an ambulance kind of allergy. Anna knew this better than anyone. I found her in the kitchen laughing with Ryan. as she stirred the pasta. She looked happier than I'd seen her in weeks. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Smells potent." Anna glanced over her smile, faltering for a split second. "Oh my God. Sam. I completely forgot. I'm so sorry." She didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed. "Ryan loves seafood, it's his comfort food." I wasn't thinking. "It's fine," I lied. My throat felt tight. "I'll just order a pizza or something." "There's leftover chicken from 2 nights ago," she offered, already turning back to the stove. Ryan gave me a sympathetic little smirk. "Sorry, man. My bad." I ate 2-day-old chicken alone in my home office while they ate shrimp scampi at the dining table, their laughter echoing down the hall. That was the beginning. Anna, who used to text me throughout the day, went silent. When I'd get home, she and Ryan would be deep in conversation, which would stop the second I walked into the room. She started cooking seafood at least twice a week, always with the same breezy, "Oops, I forgot again." My kitchen, my own damn house, became a minefield of potential anaphylaxis. The distance wasn't just emotional. She stopped touching me. A kiss on the cheek before work became a quick mumbled bye. When I tried to pull her close in bed, she'd stiffen. "I'm tired, Sam," she'd sigh, rolling over to face the wall. My suspicion started to feel less like paranoia and more like self-preservation. I tried to talk to my best friend Mark about it. We were grabbing a beer after I'd had to air out the entire house because Anna decided to make lobster bisque. "I don't know, man," I said, swirling the condensation on my glass. "It's just weird. They're always together, whispering, laughing. And the way she looks at him." "Dude, they're cousins," Mark said, taking a long pull from his beer. "Family. His dad just died. She's probably just being supportive." "You're being a little possessive, don't you think?" "Possessive? She's my wife." She put her legs on his lap the other night while they were watching a movie. I had walked into the living room to ask if they wanted a drink. The lights were low. Anna was curled on one end of the couch, Ryan on the other. Her bare feet were resting on his thighs, and he had one hand resting casually on her ankle. They didn't move when I came in. They just stared at me, their private little bubble broken. The air was so thick with something. I could barely breathe. It felt more intimate than anything I'd shared with my wife in months. Mark shrugged. "Okay, that's a little weird, I'll give you that. But incest? Come on, Sam. That's soap opera stuff. You're just not used to having another guy in the house. You're overthinking it. Give it time." He was probably right. I was an introvert, a born overthinker. I was just jealous and insecure. I tried to believe it. I really did. I tried to be the supportive husband. I'd ask Ryan how his job search was going. I'd make friendly conversation. But it was like I was a ghost in my own home. They were a unit, and I was the awkward, inconvenient third wheel. The breaking point was a Tuesday. I got a text from Anna around noon. Asterisk. Can't wait for tonight. He'll be gone soon. Asterisk. My heart hammered against my ribs. A cold dread washed over me. He'll be gone soon. She was talking about me. She had to be. Then a second text buzzed through. Asterisk. Oops, sorry, that was for my sister. We're planning a surprise for you, asterisk. A surprise. Right. My hands were shaking so bad I had to put my phone down on my desk. My brain was screaming at me. Asterisk lies. It's all lies. Asterisk. I couldn't focus. I stared at the lines of code on my screen, but they were just a meaningless jumble. Every dismissive comment, every plate of seafood, every shared glance between them replayed in my head. I wasn't overthinking. I wasn't paranoid. Something was terribly, horribly wrong in my house. I packed up my laptop. Feeling sick, I mumbled to my boss, "Gotta go home." I drove, but I didn't go straight home. I circled the block, parking down the street where I could see the front door. What was I even doing? What did I expect to find? I felt insane, like a stalker casing my own life. Mark's voice was in my head times. "You're being possessive, man." Asterisk. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd walk in and find Anna planning a surprise party with her sister on a video call. I'd feel like the world's biggest asshole. But my gut, that primal animal instinct deep inside, was screaming that I was walking into an ambush. For nearly an hour, I just sat there watching my house. The curtains were drawn. The place looked dead. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I pulled the car around the corner and into our driveway. The house was silent as I walked up the path. I slid my key into the lock. It wouldn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. It was deadbolted. From the inside. We never used the deadbolt. Not when one of us was home. Never. My blood ran cold. He'll be gone soon. They thought I was gone. They thought they were alone. They were in there together behind a locked door. I stood there, key in the dead-bolted lock, and my entire world tilted on its axis. My breath hitched. He'll be gone soon. They thought I was gone. They were in there. A red rage, hot and blinding, washed over me. I wanted to kick the door down, to scream, to shatter the quiet little life they were carving up inside my house. But a colder, smarter part of me took over. Kicking the door in would make me the villain. I'd be the crazy, jealous husband. They'd twist it. Anna was a master at twisting things. I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. I walked. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't be there. I ended up at the small park 2 blocks away, slumping onto a bench overlooking the duck pond. My mind was a hurricane of betrayal. I sat there for I don't know how long, just staring at the water, feeling my marriage dissolve into nothing. Then I saw them. They were walking along the path at the far side of the pond, hand in hand. Not a friendly, familial handhold. Their fingers were interlaced tight. They stopped under a willow tree, and the world seemed to slow down. Anna looked up at Ryan, her face full of an adoration I hadn't seen directed at me in over a year. He leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a peck. It was a deep, passionate kiss, his hand sliding from hers to cup the back of her head, pulling her into him. I stood up. The world was strangely silent. As I walked towards them, my feet crunching on the gravel path. They didn't see me until I was 10 feet away. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Anna's eyes went wide with panic. "Sam." She gasped, her voice unnaturally high. "What are you doing here? I thought you were at work." "The door was deadbolted," I said. My own voice was flat dead. "I came home early." I looked from her flushed face to Ryan's smug one. What was that? What was what Anna said, forcing a laugh? I was just giving him a hug. A sibling hug. He's been so down lately. Ryan nodded, playing along. Yeah, man. Just family stuff. A sibling hug. The lie was so blatant, so insulting, it was like a slap in the face. They were standing there lying to my face about what I had just seen with my own 2 eyes. A sibling hug, I repeated, a bitter taste in my mouth. Right? You kiss all your family members like that, Anna. You're being crazy, she snapped, her panic turning to anger. You're paranoid, and you're seeing things that aren't there. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're suffocating me. I just looked at her. The woman I loved was gone. This person in front of me was a stranger, a venomous, calculating stranger. I turned and walked away without another word. I had my answer. Now I needed proof. The plan formed on the drive to a 2-4-hour electronics store. It was cold, methodical, and felt utterly insane. I bought 3 tiny cameras, the kind that look like USB chargers. I spent the night on Mark's couch, ignoring his questions. The next morning, I called Anna. My voice was steady. Listen, I said, I'm sorry about yesterday. You're right, I overreacted. I've been stressed. I could almost hear her relief through the phone. It's okay, honey. I get it. I have to go to London for a couple of days, I lied. Emergency project meeting. I'm heading to the airport from the office. I'll be back Thursday night. Oh, okay, well. Be safe. She said, the excitement barely contained in her voice. Perfect. I waited until I knew she'd left for work, then I let myself into my own house. The place felt tainted. I worked fast. 1 camera in the living room pointed at the couch, 1 in our bedroom tucked on the bookshelf. The last one I put in the kitchen facing the dining table. I connected them to a cloud storage account on a brand new untraceable email address. Then I went to a cheap motel near the airport and opened my laptop. I waited. For hours, I just watched an empty house. My house. Then around 6, they came home together laughing. They were carrying bags of groceries. I saw a lobster tail sticking out of one. I watched as they cooked together, drinking wine. I watched them eat at my table. I watched them move to the couch. I saw him kiss her and her hand slide down his chest. I saw enough. I shut the laptop, feeling sick to my stomach. I didn't need to see the rest. The next day, I checked the feed again. The camera in the bedroom was offline. Then the one in the living room blinked out. They'd found them. A cold knot of fear tightened in my gut, but it was quickly replaced by a grim satisfaction. I already had what I needed. The clips were saved. The truth was downloaded. I drove home Thursday night just like I said I would. I walked in and found Anna on the couch reading a book. She looked up, feigning a welcoming smile. Hey, how was London? There was no trip to London, I said, dropping my keys on the table. We need to talk. Her smile vanished. What's wrong? I know, Anna. She played dumb. You know what? I know about you and Ryan. I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes, but she held my gaze. I told you, Sam, you're imagining things. You're being possessive. Am I? I took out my phone, pulled up the first video, and placed it on the coffee table in front of her. It was the clip of them in the kitchen kissing passionately over the stove. She watched it, her face a mask of stone. The color drained from her cheeks. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She just looked up at me, her eyes cold as ice. "So, she said, her voice chillingly calm. "What are you going to do?" The lack of remorse was stunning. "What am I going to do? I'm ending this. Pack your things." She laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "You naive idiot. Did you really think I loved you?" Every word was a punch. "What are you talking about?" "Ryan and I have always been together," she said, a cruel smirk on her face. "Since we were teenagers. But our family, they wouldn't approve. It's easier this way. You were a good cover, Sam. The stable, boring husband no one would ever suspect." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My marriage wasn't just a failure. It was a fabrication. A lie I had lived and breathed for 2 years. Then she delivered the final disgusting blow. "It doesn't have to end," she said, leaning forward. "We can make this work. We can have an open thing. You get to stay married, I get to have him. It's perfect." The rage I'd been suppressing finally broke free. "Get out." I pointed to the door. "Get out of my house. Both of you. Now." She got out. But the war had just begun. The next day, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice trembling with fury. "Sam, what in God's name did you do to that poor girl? Her father just called us screaming. He said you're a violent, possessive monster, that you planted cameras all over the house to spy on her." The lies. They were already spreading, poisoning everything. I was being painted as the abuser. Anna was the victim. I hung up, my blood boiling. This was their game. To destroy me, to ruin my reputation, to make me the villain so they could be the martyrs. Pushed to the extreme, I did the only thing I could. I created a new email. I attached the video files, the kitchen, the living room couch. I sent it to 2 addresses: Anna's parents and Ryan's mother. The subject line was simple. Asterisk. The truth. Asterisk. The phone calls stopped. The threats stopped. All of it. There was just silence. A deep, profound, and damning silence. I filed for divorce the next day. The process was brutally fast. She didn't contest a thing. I got a restraining order against both of them. The house, which had been my prison, became my sanctuary again. I threw out every plate, every glass, every single thing she had ever touched. The divorce is final now. The quiet in my house is different. It's not lonely, it's peaceful. But sometimes in the dead of night, I still wake up with the phantom smell of seafood in the air, a ghost of the betrayal that I'm still learning how to live with. The lies started small. In 3rd grade, Casey told her entire class she had a pet pony named Stardust who lived in a secret stable behind our suburban townhouse. I only found out at a parent-teacher conference when Mrs. Davison asked me with a perfectly straight face how Stardust was recovering from his sprained ankle. I remember the hot flush of embarrassment, the forced laugh. "Oh, Casey, in her imagination," I'd said. But it wasn't imagination. It was something else, something sharper. By 16, the lies had grown teeth. She'd look me dead in the eye and swear she'd been at the library when I could smell the smoke on her jacket. She'd invent elaborate stories about feuds with friends, painting herself as the tragic victim in dramas that I'd later learn never even happened. My husband, Mark. And I tried everything. Therapy, tough love, gentle talks over dinner. Nothing stuck. So when she sat us down in the living room, her hands trembling, and said, "Mom, Dad, I'm gay," our first overwhelming instinct was relief. Finally, a truth. A real, solid, unshakable truth. "Okay," Mark said, leaning forward and putting his hand over hers. "Okay, honey, we love you." I slid over on the couch and wrapped my arms around her. "We love you so much," I whispered into her hair. "Are you okay?" She sobbed into my shoulder, a gut-wrenching sound of fear and release. That was the night we met Sarah, her first girlfriend. Casey called her, and Sarah came right over, nervous and sweet. We ordered pizzas and Mark made his terrible dad jokes, and by the end of the night Sarah was calling him Mr. Mark and laughing. For the first time in years, the tension in our house eased. We had our daughter back. We leaned in hard. We bought rainbow flags for our garden during Pride Month. We took Casey and Sarah on our family vacation to the lake. And the pictures from that trip are still on our mantle, the four of us, arms slung around each other, squinting in the sun. We celebrated their anniversaries. When they broke up a year later, I held Casey while she cried and told her she would find love again, that her heart was big enough. But the truth of her sexuality didn't cure the sickness of her lying. Her behavior escalated. There were screaming matches that came out of nowhere, accusations that we were trying to control her, that we never loved her. Money went missing from my purse. She dropped out of community college and refused to get a job. She was a ghost in our house, a storm cloud of misery. The diagnosis finally came after a particularly bad episode landed us in a crisis center. Borderline personality disorder. It had a name. It explained the frantic efforts to avoid abandonment, the unstable self-image, the explosive anger. We read every book, joined support groups. We found a top-rated treatment facility that specialized in BPD. "We'll pay for all of it," I told her, sitting at the kitchen table, brochures spread between us. "Inpatient, outpatient, whatever you need. We just want you to get better." Casey stared at the brochures, her face a mask of stone. "So you're trying to ship me off?" "No," Mark said, his voice firm but gentle. "We are trying to help you. But honey, we can't live like this anymore." The screaming, the accusations. It's destroying our family. The ultimatum is this: you agree to get treatment, and we will support you 100%, or you need to find your own place to live. She chose to leave. She packed 2 suitcases that afternoon, and her friend picked her up. She didn't even say goodbye. The next few years were a blur of strained phone calls and radio silence. We kept her on our health insurance, sent her money when she asked, and told her every single time that our offer to pay for treatment still stood. Then slowly things started to change. At 23, she got a job as a DEI manager for a trendy tech startup. She told us she was in therapy, that she was working on herself. We started having tentative Sunday dinners. She was still our Casey, but there was a new calm in her eyes. We let ourselves hope. Last week, she sent me a link in a text message. "Mom, my company is doing a big Pride Month campaign, and they featured my coming out story. I'm so excited for you to read it." My heart swelled. Mark and I huddled over my laptop at the kitchen counter, my arm linked through his. "Look at her," he said, pointing at her professional headshot on the webpage. "So grown up." "I'm so proud," I said, my voice thick. I clicked the link. The title of the article was "My Journey to Authenticity: How I Found Myself After My Family Knew the Truth." I started reading, a smile on my face. The first few paragraphs were about her feelings, her internal struggle. Then, I got to the part about us. Asterisk, I sat my parents down in our living room, my heart pounding out of my chest, and I told them I was a lesbian. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face hardened. My father just stared at the wall. The next day, my bags were packed and left on the front porch. They told me this wasn't the life they wanted for me, that I wasn't welcome in their house as long as I chose this lifestyle. I was 16 and homeless. Asterisk. The words blurred. I read the sentence again and again. My breath caught in my chest. Asterisk, for 2 years, I couch surfed and slept in my car, completely cut off from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. It wasn't until a relative guilt tripped them into it that they finally let me come back home, but things were never the same. Their acceptance was cold conditional. It was a long, painful road to where I am today, but I'm proud of the woman I've become, not because of them, but in spite of them. Asterisk. Emma, what's wrong? Mark asked, his hand on my shoulder. I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the screen. I watched his eyes scan the text, saw his face drain of color. He looked like he'd been punched. The post was going viral. It had thousands of shares, tens of thousands of likes. In the comments, God, the comments, what monsters. To do that to your own child. Unforgivable. This is why we still need pride. For brave people like you fighting against hateful bigots like your parents. Your parents deserve to rot. I'm so sorry you went through that. My picture, our family picture from that lake house vacation with Casey and Sarah, was being shared in the comments as a before, a snapshot of the happy family she had lost. Each notification was a fresh stab in the heart. My hands were shaking as I picked up my phone. I called Casey. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent her a text. Casey, you need to call me right now. What is that article? None of that is true. A few minutes later, 3 dots appeared. Then a message. Mom, relax. It's just a story for the campaign. It's for engagement. It's just a way to get clicks. Just a way to get clicks. Our reputation, our truth sacrificed for online engagement. Rage, cold and pure, washed over me. I went back to the post, to the sea of strangers calling me a monster. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I wrote a comment directly under the article. Casey, this is your mother. I have always loved you and supported you. We never kicked you out. This story is a complete lie, and it is breaking our hearts. Please take this down. I hit post. For a moment, I felt a sliver of relief. The truth was out there. Then, not 60 seconds later, my comment vanished. It was just gone. She had deleted it. She had silenced me. My phone buzzed again. It was another text from Casey. Stop being so dramatic. You're making this a huge deal, and you're going to ruin it for me. Ruin it for her. My fingers went numb. I stared at the phone, at the message bubble floating on the screen, a perfect little capsule of poison. My breath came in shallow, ragged bursts. Mark came up behind me, resting his hands on my shoulders. He read the text over my shoulder and let out a long, slow breath. That's it, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. That's the line. I looked up at him, my vision blurring with tears of pure, unadulterated fury. She deleted my comment, Mark. She silenced me and then told me I'm times the one ruining things. I know, he said, his grip on my shoulders tightening. So we stopped being silent. A switch flipped inside me. The grief and the shock hardened into something solid and sharp. She wanted a story, I'd give her one. The truth. The attic, I said, already moving. The photo boxes. I'll get the laptop. Mark said, his voice a grim echo behind me. For the next hour, we were a machine. We didn't talk much, just worked. I pulled down box after dusty box, my hands smudged with dirt and time. I ripped open envelopes and let years of memories spill onto the floor. There it was, Pride 2018. The four of us, me, Mark, Casey, and sweet Sarah, all wearing matching rainbow Free Mom Hugs and Free Dad Hugs t-shirts. Casey was grinning, her arm thrown around my neck, her face alight with joy. I scanned the photo. Next, the vacation album from the lake house. Casey and Sarah in a canoe laughing as Mark pretended to be a sea monster. Casey and me on the dock, our feet in the water, her head resting on my shoulder. Click. Scan. Mark was at the dining room table, pulling old videos off a hard drive. He found the one from Casey's 17th birthday. Make a wish, sweetie, I was saying from behind the camera. She blew out the candles on her cake. A rainbow layer cake I'd spent all day making, and Sarah kissed her on the cheek. Everyone cheered. Got it, Mark said. He uploaded the clip. I sat down next to him, the evidence laid out before us like a murder investigation. The life we had lived. The love we had given. All of it denied for clicks. I opened my own Facebook page. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. What are you going to say? Mark asked softly. The truth, I said. The whole truth. I started to type. Asterisk. This is for everyone who has read the article about my daughter Casey and has left comments calling my husband and me monsters. I am not a monster. I am a mother whose heart is being publicly broken by a lie. Asterisk. Asterisk. Casey has a long history of mental illness, including a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. We have always tried to support her. When she came out to us at 16, we wrapped her in our arms and told her we loved her. We welcomed her girlfriend Sarah into our family with open arms. Asterisk. Asterisk. We were never unsupportive. We never kicked her out for being gay. The ultimatum we gave her years later was about her refusing treatment for her BPD treatment. We offered to pay for entirely. She chose to leave rather than get help. Asterisk. Asterisk. A story for a pride campaign should be about truth and bravery, not cruel fiction. I don't know why she did this, but I cannot stand by and let this lie destroy us. Below is the proof. The pictures. The videos. The life we actually lived. Asterisk. I attached everything. The pride photos, the vacation snaps, the birthday video. I scrolled down the list of people to tag, my thumb hovering over her name. Then I pressed it. I tagged Casey. And I hit post. For a minute there was silence. Then my phone began to vibrate. It didn't stop. Notifications poured in. Hundreds of them. The post was being shared at a dizzying speed. At first, the comments were from friends and family, all expressing their shock and support. Emma, we were at that pride parade with you. I remember that day, my sister wrote. Mark, I'm so sorry. We always knew you were amazing parents. A friend from work commented. Then the strangers began to arrive. The same ones who had called me a bigot just an hour before. Oh my God. I am so sorry. I shared the original article, and I feel sick now. I've deleted it and shared this. Wow. The receipts are undeniable. Your daughter needs serious help. As a member of the LGBTQ community, thank you for not letting her story stand. We don't claim her. My phone dinged with a message request. It was from a young woman I didn't recognize named Jenna. Asterisk high times, it read. Asterisk you don't know me. I'm Casey's girlfriend. I just saw your post. I had no idea. She told me the same story she wrote in the article. I feel like such an idiot. I just called her out on it and she went ballistic. I'm so sorry, asterisk. My heart ached for this girl, another casualty of Casey's fabrications. And then my phone rang. Casey's face flashed on the screen. I put it on speaker. Hello, Casey. I said, my voice flat and cold. What the hell did you do? She screamed, her voice shrill and ragged. There was no greeting, no preamble. Just pure rage. I told the truth, I said calmly. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. You made me look like a liar. You ruined everything. My work is calling me my girlfriend. Just broke up with me over text. You tagged me. You did that on purpose to humiliate me. The lack of remorse was staggering. It wasn't the lie she was sorry for. It was the fact that her lie had been exposed. You humiliated us, Casey, Mark cut in, his voice like iron. You threw us to the wolves for what? A little bit of attention. Did you ever once think about how that would feel for us? It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. She shrieked. It was just a story. It was good for my career. You always have to make everything about you. You took my moment, my story, and you made it about you. My story. As if our lives were just props for her to arrange in any tragedy she saw fit. The last thread of hope I'd been clinging to, that this was a symptom, a cry for help, snapped. This was a choice. She saw us, her parents, as disposable. Sacrificial lambs for her personal brand. There is no your story, Casey, I said, the words tasting like ash. There's only the truth and the lies. And you built your moment on a lie. She let out a choked, furious sound like a cornered animal and hung up. The phone went silent. The notifications kept buzzing, a relentless hum of public vindication. But I felt no victory. I looked at Mark, his face etched with a sorrow so deep it mirrored my own. We had won the battle for our reputation, but in the process, the reality of what we had lost came crashing down. The daughter we had hoped was getting better, the fragile piece we had started to build, it was all an illusion. She hadn't changed. She had just gotten better at lying. I picked up my phone and blocked her number. Then I went back to the picture from the lake house. The one of the four of us squinting in the sun. And I finally let myself cry. I wasn't crying because of the lie. I was mourning a ghost. I was mourning the daughter. I thought I'd finally gotten back. The string lights Mom had woven through the branches of the old oak tree cast a warm glow over the backyard. It felt like every other summer party we'd ever had, except this one had a caterer, and my sister Chloe was wearing a white dress and a diamond the size of a molar. My brothers and I, Matt and Sam, had flown in from opposite ends of the country. We were huddled by the makeshift bar, doing what we do best, making fun of each other's life choices. Matt, the oldest, was a lawyer in Chicago. Sam was trying to be an artist in Portland. I was the baby still in college, the last one left in the nest. I'm telling you, Matt was saying, swirling the ice in his whiskey, corporate law is not that bad. At least my landlord doesn't accept payment in interpretive sculptures. Sam flipped him off. It's called a barter economy, you capitalist drone. You wouldn't get it. I was laughing, sipping a beer, just soaking it in. Having them both home was rare. It felt good. The whole night felt good. Mom and Dad were flitting around, beaming with pride. Dad was manning the grill, even though we had caterers, because he couldn't help himself. Mom was making sure everyone's glass was full. It was perfect. A woman with aggressively blonde hair and a dress that looked painted on detached herself from a group near the patio and approached us. You must be the brothers, she said, her voice a little too loud. I'm Jessica. Chloe has told me nothing times about you. She laughed, but it wasn't a joke. I stuck out my hand. Logan. And this is Matt and Sam. We exist, I promise. Jessica shook my hand, her eyes scanning the three of us. Wow. It's just wild. I mean, Chloe always talked about her childhood like she was a lonely latchkey kid. Parents always working ghost town of a house. I honestly pictured her as a tragic only child. The beer paused halfway to my mouth. I glanced at Matt. His easy smile had tightened. Sam just looked confused. Latchkey kid Sam repeated, his brow furrowed. Mom didn't go back to work until I was in high school. And Dad coached literally every sports team we were ever on. Jessica's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. Coached, Chloe said. Her dad was always flying off to conferences. She said she basically raised herself. I forced a laugh, trying to smooth over the sudden bizarre tension. I think you must have her confused with a character from a sad 80s movie. Our dad's biggest business trip was to a tractor convention in Des Moines. He brought us all back tiny green tractor keychains. And Mom, Matt added, his voice low and steady, made our house the neighborhood headquarters. Remember the water balloon fights in the front yard? She'd make pictures of Kool-Aid for 20 kids. Oh, and the garage, Sam jumped in, getting animated. She let me paint a mural on the back wall of the garage. It was a terrible 7-foot-tall dragon, but she told all her friends it was a masterpiece. Jessica's jaw was practically on the manicured lawn. Her eyes darted from me to Matt to Sam like she was watching a tennis match. A couple of other friends of Chloe's, who had been standing nearby, started to drift closer, their expressions a mix of curiosity and confusion. One of them, a guy in a blazer who introduced himself as Mark's the fiancé's cousin, chimed in. Wait, hold on. Chloe told me she had to teach herself to ride a bike because your parents were too busy to be bothered. The three of us just stared at him. Then almost in unison, we burst out laughing. It wasn't a mean laugh, just one of pure, unadulterated shock. Dude, I said, wiping a tear from my eye. Our dad ran alongside my bike for 2 solid weeks, holding the seat. I have a scar on my knee from when he finally let go, and I immediately ate pavement right in front of Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning roses. He felt so bad he bought me a puppy. He did the same for me, Matt exclaimed. Except I crashed into the mailbox. Me too, Sam said. But I hit the garbage cans. The small crowd around us was growing. It wasn't just a couple of people anymore. It was a semicircle of Chloe's friends, all looking at us with wide, fascinated eyes. They were hanging on every word. So, your mom, she cooked a woman with a pixie cut, asked as if this were a monumental question. Cooked, I said. She made dinner for 5 people every single night. Her lasagna is a weapon of mass destruction. We had family dinner at 6 p.m. sharp. No phones, no TV. If you were late, you didn't eat. What about vacations? Someone else asked. Every summer, Matt answered immediately. 2 weeks at that same crappy cabin on Lake Michigan. Dad would teach us how to fish. Mom would pack a million sandwiches. We'd get sunburned and eaten by mosquitoes. It was the best. We weren't trying to do anything. We were just answering questions, correcting the record. It felt like we were talking about a different family, a different Chloe. Every story we told about Mom staying up until 2 a.m. to help me finish a diorama about Dad building a ridiculous 3-level treehouse in the backyard, about the movie nights and Sunday morning pancakes, was met with murmurs and shocked glances among Chloe's friends. "This is insane," Jessica whispered to the pixie cut woman, but I heard her. "It's like she's a completely different person." I started to feel a weird unease creep in. This wasn't funny anymore. We were the center of attention at my sister's engagement party for all the wrong reasons. I scanned the yard looking for Chloe, wanting to catch her eye and get some kind of signal. Maybe this was a big elaborate prank. She was playing on her friends. But I couldn't find her. The storytelling session went on for another 20 minutes. It felt like we were on trial, presenting evidence of a happy childhood. My brothers and I were just riffing off each other, lost in the memories, laughing at how insane this all was. We were a unit, the 3 of us, defending the family we knew. Finally, the crowd thinned as Mark, the fiancé, clinked a glass for a toast. My brothers and I found a spot near the back, the buzz of our strange conversation still hanging around us. "That was the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me," Sam muttered, shaking his head. "Tell me about it," Matt said. "What is her deal?" I didn't have an answer. I watched Chloe and Mark up on the patio. He was talking, saying all the right things about the love of his life. But Chloe wasn't looking at him. Her smile was a tight, brittle line. Her eyes were scanning the crowd. And when they finally landed on me, my blood ran cold. There was no joy in them. No confusion. Just a look of such pure white-hot fury that it felt like a physical slap from across the yard. She held my gaze for a solid 10 seconds. Then she turned, said something sharp to Mark that made his own smile falter, and walked stiffly back into the house. The sliding glass door shut behind her with a sharp, definitive bang that cut right through the applause. The party died a slow, awkward death. Mark finished his toast, his words about love and destiny ringing hollow in the suddenly tense air. People started making their excuses, hugging my parents with a new pitying look in their eyes. Jessica, the blonde who'd started it all, gave me a wide-eyed apologetic shrug as she left, as if to say, "Times, oops, my bad." Matt, Sam, and I stood by the wilting food platters, a tight defensive triangle. The celebratory buzz was gone, replaced by the hum of the bug zapper and the quiet clinking of the catering staff packing up. "She's going to kill us," Sam whispered, staring at the dark sliding glass door. "She's being a lunatic," Matt countered, his jaw tight. What were we supposed to do? Lie, say Dad was an absentee drunk and Mom locked us in the basement. My parents finally came over, their faces etched with confusion. What on earth was that? Mom asked, her hands twisting a cocktail napkin. All of Chloe's friends were asking the strangest questions. One of them asked me if it was hard raising a child all by myself. "We don't know, Mom," I said, the lie tasting like ash. It was weird. Just then, Mark slid the door open and stepped out. He looked pale and lost. Hey, he said to no one in particular. Chloe's not feeling well. We're going to head out. He couldn't quite meet our eyes. Is she okay? Dad asked, stepping forward. I think she just has a headache. Long day. Mark gave a weak wave and retreated back into the house. A minute later, we saw their car's headlights sweep across the lawn and disappear down the street. She didn't even say goodbye. Silence. Okay, Dad said, his voice heavy. Somebody better tell me what the hell just happened. I woke up the next morning to the ping of a text message. It was Chloe. Asterisk. We need to talk. Just you. Meet me at the old park. 10 a.m. Asterisk. My stomach twisted. The just you felt like a summons for my own execution. The park was deserted on a Sunday morning. The swings were still, the sandbox empty. Chloe was sitting on the same bench where Dad had taught her to tie her shoes, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her engagement ring glinted in the sun, looking alien and out of place. I sat down on the other end of the bench, leaving a good 5 feet of space between us. For a long time, she just stared at the wood chips on the ground. Do you have any idea what you did? She finally asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Chloe, I swear we didn't mean to do anything. Your friends were asking questions. My friends were asking questions because for 5 years I have been building a life. A story. She cut me off, her head snapping up. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry, blazing with a fury I'd never seen before. A story where I wasn't just a footnote. A story where I was the one who overcame something. Overcame what I asked, my voice rising with disbelief. We had a great childhood. That's when she laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound that didn't belong to my sister. Asterisk. You times had a great childhood, Logan. You and Matt and Sam. The three of you. The boys. The golden children. The words hung in the air between us, buzzing and venomous. What are you even talking about? Oh, come on, she sneered. Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. You were the athletes. You were the ones Dad understood. He coached your teams, he built you a treehouse, he taught you how to fish. What did he teach me? How to sit quietly and not get in the way. That's not true. Dad loved you. He loved the times of me, she shot back. But he didn't know what to do with a daughter. Do you remember my dance recitals? He came to one. Asterisk. One asterisk. And he left during intermission because it was the same night as Matt's playoff game. Do you remember that? I searched my memory, a frantic, desperate shuffle through old files. I remembered the playoff game. I remembered the pizza party afterwards. The dance recital. It was a blank. A ghost of a memory. And Mom, she continued, her voice cracking for the first time. She was so busy making sure her 3 perfect sons had everything they needed, she didn't have anything left over. You got help with your stupid dioramas until 2 a.m. I got told to figure it out with my essays because she was exhausted from driving Sam all over the state for his art competitions. Every word was a punch, knocking the wind out of me, rearranging the architecture of my past. The water balloon fights. The Kool-Aid. I was there. Matt and Sam were there. All our friends from the block, all boys, were there. Where was Chloe? In her room reading a book. always in her room. So I made a new story, she said, her voice dropping again. A story that made sense to people. The lonely girl with the workaholic parents, the survivor. It was mine. Mark fell in love with that girl. My friends connected with that girl. And you, in one single night, you couldn't stand it. You couldn't stand the spotlight being on me for once. You had to stroll in with your backup singers and remind everyone that I don't matter. That my story doesn't matter. Only yours does. I didn't. I wouldn't do that. I stammered, feeling sick. I love you. No, she said, standing up and looking down at me. You love the idea of me. The quiet sister who worships her amazing brothers. But that person doesn't exist anymore. You killed her last night. Congratulations. She turned and walked away, her shoulders rigid. She didn't look back. I just sat there on that bench, the sun climbing higher in the sky. The whole world felt tilted on its axis. I went home to a house full of ghosts. My parents were trying to act normal, making coffee, talking about the weather, but the grief was suffocating. Matt and Sam were angry, defending us, defending our childhood. She's rewriting history, Matt said, pacing the kitchen. She's delusional. But was she? I walked into the living room to the bookshelves lined with photo albums. I pulled one out. Summer 1998. There we were, the three of us boys, covered in mud, grinning around a campfire Dad had built. On the next page, another picture. Matt holding up a fish. Sam and I on top of the treehouse. Me on my bike, Dad's hand a blur as he let go. I flipped through page after page. We were everywhere. A laughing, tumbling, chaotic unit of three. And there on the edge of the frame, over and over again, was Chloe. Sometimes she was half hidden behind Mom. Sometimes she was sitting on the steps of the porch, a book in her lap, watching us. In every photo she looked separate. Not unhappy, not sad, just not a part of it. An observer of a life she was supposed to be living. My perfect childhood, the one I'd defended so proudly, wasn't a lie. It was just mine. I'd been living in a brightly lit room, so happy and warm that I never noticed my own sister was standing outside in the cold. Her face pressed against the glass, watching it all. The string lights from the party were still woven through the branches of the old oak tree. They looked sad and foolish in the daylight. Last night, I thought we were celebrating a beginning. I was wrong. We were at an ending. And I was the one who had finally, blissfully, stupidly flicked off the switch. For the first time in my 17 years, we had a forever home. Not home for the next 3 years, not quarters until the next posting, but a real, honest to God, we own the dirt under it home. Dad retired after 22 years in the Army, and with his pension and Mom's savings, they bought a decommissioned officer's house on the edge of the old base. It was a solid brick monster with a wraparound porch and a backyard big enough to lose a small platoon in. To celebrate, we threw a housewarming party that was more like a family invasion. My mom's side of the family, my dad's, and about half his old unit showed up. Cars lined the entire street, spilling into the cul-de-sac. The driveway was packed 2 cars deep. From space, our house must have looked like the only place on Earth with a pulse. Inside, the noise was a physical thing. A chaotic symphony of my aunts gossiping, My cousins yelling over a video game, and a dozen deep-voiced army guys telling stories that all seemed to end with someone getting thrown in a brig. I was in the kitchen trying to snag a sausage roll before my Uncle Mike ate the whole tray when I saw Dad stop dead in the doorway to the dining room. He wasn't looking at the chaos inside. He was staring out the big bay window that overlooked the back garden. My dad, Sergeant Major Thomas Miller, isn't a man of many words, but his silence is louder than most people's yelling. He has a kind of stillness that comes from years of being the calmest guy in the room while everything around him is exploding. Right then, that stillness was different. It was the coiled spring kind of quiet. His shoulders, usually relaxed, were squared up. His eyes were narrowed. He wasn't just looking. He was tracking. I followed his gaze. And I saw her. A woman maybe in her late 50s was wandering through my mom's new rose bushes. She had that expensive, meticulously casual look, blonde hair, perfectly coiffed, a cream-colored cashmere sweater, and a handbag that probably cost more than my first car would. She was ambling around like she was judging a flower show, occasionally touching a petal or peering at the foundation of the house. Now you have to understand our backyard. Because the house bordered the old base, security was a big deal. To get from the front street to where this woman was standing, you had to go through a 6-foot wooden gate at the side of the house. That gate had a heavy-duty bolt on the inside. Then you had to cross the patio and go through a second wrought iron gate that led to the lower garden. That one had a latch and was always stiff. Finally, to get to the rose bushes by the back fence, you had to pass a third gate in a small picket fence Mom had installed to keep our beagle Buster out of her flower beds. All 3 gates were locked. I knew because Dad had made me check them that morning. There was no way she'd gotten in by accident. She had deliberately and methodically bypassed 3 locked gates to stand in the middle of our private garden during a party with at least 15 cars parked out front. Dad didn't say a word. He just gave a slight head jerk to Uncle Mike and Sergeant Dave, who were standing by the grill on the patio. They saw her too. Uncle Mike was a mountain with a shaved head, who had been my dad's right-hand man for a decade. Sergeant Dave was even bigger, a former recon Marine, who looked like he'd been carved out of granite. They put their beers down in perfect sync and fell into step behind my dad as he slid the glass door open. They didn't storm out. They just walked. 3 large, silent men moving with a purpose that sucked all the air out of the immediate vicinity. The chatter on the patio died down as everyone watched them cross the lawn. Dad stopped about 10 feet from the woman. Mike and Dave fanned out slightly, creating a loose, intimidating triangle. "Excuse me," Dad said. His voice was calm, but it had an edge that could cut glass. "This is private property. You're trespassing." The woman looked up from a prize-winning rose. She was inspecting. She didn't look startled. She didn't look scared. She looked annoyed, like we were interrupting her. "I'm aware of where I am," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. She waved a dismissive hand at the house. "I'm just having a look around." Dad's jaw tightened. "A look around? You climbed over 3 locked gates to get in here." "The side gate was stuck, not locked," she lied, without even a hint of shame. "I just gave it a little push." Uncle Mike shifted his weight. The ground seemed to groan. The woman's eyes flickered toward him for a second, but her entitled little smirk didn't budge. "The gate wasn't stuck," Dad said, his voice dropping a notch. "You need to leave. Now." This was the part where a normal person would apologize, make up an excuse about being lost, and get the hell out of there. This woman wasn't a normal person. She straightened up, puffed out her chest, and gave my father a look that I'd seen drill sergeants use on terrified recruits. "I will not be leaving," she announced, as if it were a royal decree. My son is buying this house, and I am inspecting the garden to see if it's suitable for a greenhouse. The silence that followed was absolute. A bird chirped somewhere, and it sounded like a gunshot. My dad, Uncle Mike, and Sergeant Dave just stared at her. They had face-down armed insurgents dealt with diplomatic incidents and survived situations I couldn't even imagine. But a middle-aged woman in a cashmere sweater lying with such baffling confidence had apparently short-circuited all their training. My dad finally found his voice. It was a low, dangerous rumble. "Your son is, what?" "He's buying the house," she repeated slowly as if talking to a child. "The sale is nearly finalized. I'm just making sure the grounds are acceptable before we close." She gestured vaguely at the lawn. "You people really should have done a better job with the weeding. But I suppose that's what staff is for." She dismissed my dad's ownership entirely, not as a mistake, but as an irrelevant detail. In her mind, we were just temporary squatters in her son's future home. My dad took a slow, deliberate step forward. The forced calm in his expression was starting to crack, and something much harder was showing through underneath. "This is my house," he said, enunciating every single word. "I own it. My name is on the deed. My family lives here. Your son is not buying it. Now, for the last time, get off my property before I call the police." The woman actually laughed. It was a short, sharp, ugly sound. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "You're renters, or perhaps the previous owners who haven't moved out yet. It doesn't matter. My son has the money, and he will have this house. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to measure the sun exposure on this back wall." She turned her back on him. She turned her back on all of them and walked toward the house, pulling a small measuring tape from her designer handbag. That was the breaking point. The sheer magnificent audacity of her turning her back on a sergeant major who had just given a direct order. I saw something in my dad's neck go tight. He took a half step forward, his hand clenching into a fist, and for a split second, I thought he was going to physically drag her off our lawn. But he didn't have to. The glass patio door slammed open so hard it rattled in its frame. My mom stood there, a dish towel still in her hand, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. For 22 years, my mom had been the perfect army wife. She could pack up a 4-bedroom house in a day, charm a commanding officer's wife at a dinner party, and stretch a budget until it screamed for mercy. She was the calm, logistical genius behind the whirlwind of my dad's career. But this house was hers. This was the one place she was never going to have to pack up again. "Who in the hell," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "do you think you are?" The woman turned, a look of annoyance on her face, ready to dismiss another peasant. She opened her mouth, but Mom was already moving, storming across the lawn like a heat-seeking missile. "You are not touching my house," Mom snarled, jabbing a finger at her. "You are not measuring my walls. And you are standing in the middle of the rose garden I just spent 2 weeks planting. Get your hands off my roses and get the hell off my property before I plant you under them." This was Mama Bear mode cranked up to a level I'd never seen. The woman actually took a step back, her condescending smirk finally faltering. Dad moved fast, intercepting Mom and wrapping his arms around her waist, holding her back as she struggled. "Let me go, Tom," she seethed, straining against his hold. "I'll handle this." "I know you will, honey," Dad said into her ear, his own voice tight with rage. "But let's do it the right way." He looked over Mom's shoulder at the woman, his eyes like chips of ice. "The police are on their way. Apparently. While Dad had been dealing with her initial approach, Uncle Mike had quietly pulled out his phone and made the call. The distant wail of a siren started to cut through the afternoon air. The woman's expression hardened again. The flicker of fear was gone, replaced by a renewed sense of righteous indignation. "Good," she snapped. "They can remove you squatters for me." By the time two police officers walked through the side gate which Uncle Mike had unbolted for them, the scene was a tableau of pure insanity. My dad, a decorated sergeant major, was physically restraining my mother, the sweetest woman on earth, from throttling a woman in a cashmere sweater who was standing defiantly in our flower bed, holding a tiny tape measure. "What seems to be the problem here?" the older officer asked, his eyes scanning the scene with a tired, seen-it-all expression. Before Dad could even speak, the woman launched her offensive. "Officer, thank God you're here," she said, her voice full of breathless relief. "These people are refusing to leave. They're squatting in my son's house, and they've become aggressive." She pointed a manicured finger at my mom. "This one even threatened me." The officer looked from the woman to my dad, who still had his arms wrapped around my mom. Dad slowly relaxed his grip, and Mom, seeming to get a hold of herself, just stood there breathing heavily and glaring daggers. "Sir," the officer said to my dad, "what's your side of the story?" "My side is simple," Dad said, his voice flat and cold. "This is my house. I have the deed and a safe inside. My wife and I bought it last month. This woman trespassed bypassing 3 locked gates and is refusing to leave." The officer turned back to the woman. "Ma'am, is this true? Did you come through the gates?" "The gate was open," she lied again, her chin held high. "And I am not trespassing. I am the mother of the owner. You need to remove them from my property. Now." She said it with such authority, such absolute conviction, that even the cops seemed momentarily taken aback. She was trying to command them like they were her personal security detail. The younger officer spoke up. "Ma'am, we have a call about a trespasser." He nodded to my dad as the homeowner on record. "You need to leave the premises." "I will do no such thing," she shrieked, her voice finally cracking. "This house is mine. My son is buying it. I will have you all out of here. I will sue you. I will have your badges." That was it. That was the last straw. I saw my dad's shoulders slump in a kind of weary finality. He had tried to be reasonable. He had tried to be firm. He had tried to de-escalate. He was done trying. He looked straight at the older officer, his face set like concrete. "Officer," he said, and the parade ground command voice was back, silencing everyone. "I want to press charges for criminal trespassing." The words hung in the air. Everything went dead quiet. The woman's entire world seemed to shatter in that single instant. The change was so fast it was like watching a mask melt off her face. The righteous fury, the entitled smirk, the unshakable confidence, it all evaporated. Her jaw went slack. Her eyes widened, and real, genuine fear flooded into them. The queen of the castle became a scared old woman in the blink of an eye. "No," she whispered, the sound barely audible. "Please. Don't." She took a stumbling step forward, her hands outstretched in a pleading gesture. "Please, I'm sorry, I'll go. I'll leave right now. Just don't charge me." The officer looked at my dad, raising an eyebrow. Dad didn't even glance at her. He just kept his eyes on the cop and gave a single sharp nod. Okay, the woman sobbed, actual tears now streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not my son's house. It's not I saw it was for sale before, and I liked it so much. I wanted it for him. I just wanted to see it again. It was the most pathetic, bizarre confession I'd ever heard. It explained nothing and everything all at once. She was just a woman whose delusional desires had completely overtaken her reality. The older officer sighed and gently took her by the elbow. "Come on, ma'am. Let's go." She didn't resist. All the fight was gone. They led her away, a defeated, weeping figure escorted out of the garden she had claimed as her own just minutes earlier. We all just stood there on the lawn watching her go. The party inside was dead silent. Everyone had crowded around the windows and the open patio door, witnessing the entire insane drama. Uncle Mike finally broke the silence. "Well," he said, clapping Dad on the shoulder. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Tom." A few people chuckled, breaking the tension. My mom leaned against my dad, all the fight gone out of her too. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. He looked out over the lawn at my mom's savaged rose bushes, at the 3 gates standing secure, and at the empty space where the crazy woman had been. A small smile touched his lips. For the first time all day, he looked completely, truly relaxed. He was home. We were all home. And he would defend it against anything. The first thing I noticed about my mom's new house was the noise. It wasn't the warm, chaotic sound of a family. It was the sharp, percussive bang of weights hitting the floor in the garage, the constant blare of sports commentary from the living room TV, and the guttural laughter that always seemed to be at someone's expense. It was the sound of Joe and his 2 sons, Mark and Kevin. A symphony of testosterone. My room was my only sanctuary. I sat hunched over my drawing tablet, the clean lines of a character design, a welcome relief from the chaos downstairs. The headphones over my ears were blasting a playlist my friend Maya made for me, but I could still feel the house vibrating every time one of the hulks downstairs slammed a door. A soft knock, then the door creaked open without waiting for a reply. My mom. She was holding 2 mugs of tea apiece, offering I'd learned to be wary of. "Hey honey," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Working on your art?" "Yeah," I said, not looking up. I nudged a slider with my stylus, deepening a shadow under a jawline. She set a mug on the corner of my desk, dangerously close to a pile of sketches. "That's nice. Joe was just saying he hasn't seen you all day." "Here we go." I pulled off my headphones. "I've been busy." "Well, he wants to spend some time with you. He thinks it would be a good idea for him to take you for a drive later. For some practice." My whole body went rigid. "I don't need practice. Dad and Brian are teaching me. We went out last weekend." Her smile tightened. "I know, sweetie. But this is for bonding. Joe feels like you're shutting him out. He just wants to connect." Connect, Mom. His idea of connecting is asking me if I got a girlfriend yet every 5 minutes and then telling Kevin to put me in a headlock. "We have nothing in common." "That's not true," she said, her voice taking on that defensive edge. "He's trying, Jacob. You could try a little too. It's just a driving lesson." "It's never just anything with him," I muttered. I thought of last week when my friends Maya and Liam came over. Joe had watched them from the kitchen, arms crossed over his chest, a deep scowl on his face. Liam has his nails painted black and Maya has a side shave. After they left, Joe had clapped me on the shoulder and said loud enough for the whole house to hear, "You need some new friends, kid. Ones that play ball, not dress up." My mom had just busied herself with the dishes pretending she hadn't heard. She was always pretending. "Please, Jacob," she said now, her voice softening into a weapon of guilt. "For me, just an hour." I looked from her pleading face to my tablet screen at the art she called a nice little hobby. My dad and Brian had already framed 2 of my pieces and hung them in their living room. They called me an artist. Joe called me. Well, he didn't say the word "not" directly, but it hung in the air every time he looked at me. Fine, I sighed the word tasting. Like defeat. 1 hour. Her face flooded with relief. "Thank you. See, it'll be fun." It was not fun. The second I got into the passenger seat of Joe's oversized pickup truck, the air became thick and hard to breathe. The cab smelled like old coffee and artificial pine tree air fresheners. He waited until I'd buckled my seatbelt before speaking. "All right. Let's see what your father's taught you." The way he said times father times was laced with something bitter. I drove us out of the neighborhood, my hands clenched at 10 and 2. Every move I made was met with a grunt or a sharp correction. "You're riding the clutch. Don't brake so hard. You trying to give me whiplash. Take that turn wider. This isn't a go-kart." I just nodded, my jaw tight, focusing on the road. We drove in tense silence for 10 minutes before he couldn't take it anymore. "You know your mom worries about you." He started, his voice a low grumble. "I'm fine," I said. "No, you're not. All that time in your room with the drawings, hanging out with those theatrical friends of yours. That's not normal for a 19-year-old guy." I gripped the steering wheel harder. "My friends are fine." "Are they?" He laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Look, I know your dad and his partner think it's all just peachy. But out here in the real world, men are men. You gotta be strong. You can't be soft." The word hung in the air between us. Soft asterisk. It was his favorite euphemism. "I'm just saying," he continued, his voice rising. "I'm not gonna stand by and watch you end up like them. A sissy. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm trying to get you to play sports, to get out there. Someone's gotta teach you how to be a man." That was it. The world went quiet. The hum of the engine, the rumble of the tires on asphalt, it all faded away. All I could hear was that one sentence replaying in my head. Someone's gotta teach you how to be a man. My dad, who taught me how to be kind. Brian, who taught me how to cook and laugh at myself. They weren't men. My foot pressed a little harder on the gas. The speedometer needle crept past 60. "Whoa. Slow down, hotshot," Joe barked, grabbing the dashboard. "What's gotten into you?" I didn't answer. I just kept driving, my vision narrowing to a tunnel. I saw the sign for the interstate up ahead. Home was to the right. I swung the truck left onto the on-ramp. "What the hell are you doing?" "This is the wrong way," Joe yelled. "You wanted to drive, we're driving," I said, my voice eerily calm. I pushed the truck up to 75, weaving through traffic with a precision that surprised even me. Joe was white-knuckling the door handle, his face a mask of fury and fear. For 30 minutes, I just drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew it was away. Finally, the fuel light blinked on. An exit with a gas station sign appeared like a miracle. I took it, pulling into a brightly lit generic station in a town I didn't recognize. I brought the truck to a smooth stop next to a pump. Joe let out a shaky breath. He turned to me, his face red with anger. "You got a goddamn death wish. What was that?" I just stared straight ahead, my hands still locked on the wheel. "Unbelievable," he spat. He unbuckled his seatbelt with a vicious tug. "I'm paying inside. Do not move this truck. Do you understand me?" I gave a single slow nod. He slammed the door and stomped toward the convenience store, muttering curses under his breath. I watched him go. I sat there in the driver's seat, the engine humming quietly, the keys still in the ignition. The fluorescent lights of the gas station canopy hummed above me. I looked at the empty passenger seat. Then I looked at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were clear. Asterisk. Someone's got to teach you how to be a man. Asterisk. Joe's words echoed in the sudden silence of the truck. Asterisk, man up times, he'd told me. Okay. I reached down, my hand steady. I shifted the gear selector from park to drive. My foot moved from the brake to the accelerator. The truck lurched forward. Joe, just reaching the door to the store, turned at the sound. His eyes went wide as he saw the truck rolling away from the pump. He started yelling, waving his arms, but his voice was lost behind the glass. I pressed the gas, pulled out of the station, and merged back onto the empty road, leaving him standing there, a shrinking silhouette under the harsh buzzing lights. The phone started buzzing before I was even 2 miles away. The screen lit up with Joe's name and a picture of him holding a ridiculously large fish. I pressed the volume down button on the side of the steering wheel, silencing it. It buzzed again a minute later, and again. The screen became a strobe light of his anger flashing in the dark cab of his stupid truck. I ignored it. I pulled up the GPS on my phone, plugged in my mom's address, and set it on the passenger seat where he'd been sitting. The calm digital voice of the navigation lady was a welcome replacement for his gravelly one. For the 30-minute drive home, I listened to the music on my phone through the truck speakers. Something loud and angry and cathartic. I sang along, my voice cracking, a strange mix of rage and relief coursing through me. I drove perfectly. No hard braking. No wide turns. I drove like my dad and Brian taught me. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't try to hide the truck. I parked it right where he always did, turned it off, and left the keys in the ignition. I walked into the house and straight past my mom, who was in the kitchen. "Jacob, I thought you two were going for another hour. Is Joe?" "He's fine," I said, not breaking my stride, as I took the stairs 2 at a time. In my room, I pulled my biggest duffel bag out of the closet and started throwing things into it. T-shirts, jeans, my laptop, my drawing tablet, and stylus. The essentials. I worked with a cold efficiency, my hands moving on autopilot. My phone continued its frantic buzzing on my desk. Now it was a mix of calls from Joe and text from my mom. Asterisk. "Where are you? Joe just called me." Asterisk. Asterisk. "He said you left him at a gas station." "Jacob, this isn't funny." Asterisk. Asterisk. "Answer your phone right now." Asterisk. I zipped the bag shut just as I heard the front door slam open downstairs. "Jacob," the roar shook the whole house. It wasn't a question. It was a declaration of war. I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked out of my room, meeting him at the top of the stairs. His face was blotchy and red, his chest heaving. My mom was right behind him, looking pale and terrified. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he bellowed, pointing a thick finger at me. "You think that was funny? Leaving me stranded in the middle of nowhere?" I started down the stairs slowly, my bag thumping against my back with each step. "You told me to man up," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "I did. I made a decision and I drove home." "That's not manning up, you little psycho." That's... He sputtered, searching for a word big enough for his rage. My mom rushed forward, grabbing his arm. "Joe, calm down. Let's just talk about this." She turned her frantic eyes on me. "Jacob, what were you thinking? You could have been arrested." Joe had to get an Uber. I reached the bottom of the stairs and stood in front of them, right in the center of the entryway. I was a foot shorter than Joe and 100 pounds lighter, but I didn't feel small. He told me he wasn't going to stand by and watch me end up a sissy like Dad and Brian, I said, looking directly at my mom. I watched for a flicker of understanding, of maternal protection. I saw nothing. Her face just crumpled in exasperation. "Oh, Jacob, you can't take things so literally. He's just... You know how he is. He's gruff. He was trying to connect with you. By calling my dad a sissy," I asked, my voice dangerously low. "You're twisting his words," she insisted, her voice rising. "He's worried about you. And this is how you repay him. By stealing his truck and abandoning him. You are grounded. You're not going anywhere. You're not seeing anyone. You can give me your phone right now." She held out her hand, her expression hard and final. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was choosing. She had chosen. I looked from her outstretched hand to Joe's smug, triumphant face. He'd won. He had his ally. I just shook my head. No. I walked past them toward the front door. "Where do you think you're going?" Joe barked, stepping in my way. I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it, and hit a number on my favorites list. It rang once before he picked up. "Hey, what's up? Can you come get me?" I asked, my voice steady. I never took my eyes off Joe. "I'm at Mom's. I need to leave." "Yeah. Of course. Everything okay?" "Not really. I'll explain when you get here." "On my way." 10 minutes. I hung up and slipped the phone back into my pocket. "My brother is coming to get me." My mom's face fell. "What, Jacob? Don't be so dramatic. You're not leaving." "I am," I said. I turned my back on them, opened the front door, and walked outside, letting it close softly behind me. I didn't slam it. I sat down on the top step of the porch, placed my duffel bag beside me, and waited. I could hear them arguing inside, their voices muffled and angry. I didn't care. The cool night air felt good on my face. A car pulled into the driveway a few minutes later, its headlights washing over me. My brother got out, his expression a mixture of concern and confusion. He looked at my bag. "You weren't kidding." "Nope," I said, standing up and grabbing it. "What happened?" he asked as I threw the bag in his backseat. "I'll tell you in the car." I got in, shut the door, and buckled my seatbelt. As we reversed out of the driveway, the front door opened. My mom stood there, silhouetted in the light of the house. She was holding her phone, probably about to call me again. I didn't wave. I just watched her get smaller and smaller until my brother turned the corner and she was gone. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from her. Then a call. I powered it off completely and dropped it into the cup holder. The silence in the car was heavy for a moment. So my brother said, glancing over at me, "Dad's place." I leaned my head against the cool glass of the window, watching the streetlights slide by. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. "Yeah," I said. "Home." I never liked my husband's brother, Dave. It wasn't one big thing, just 1,000 little ones. The way he'd talk over me in conversations, the way his eyes would glaze over when I mentioned my kids, the smirk he'd get when he called my husband whipped. Mark always said I was being too sensitive, that it was just Dave being Dave. So, when the call came that Dave's house had burned down, I felt a cold dread that had nothing to do with sympathy. He didn't have insurance. Of course he didn't. Planning is for suckers, he'd once told Mark over beers right in my kitchen. "He can stay with us," Mark said, not asking. His hand was already on the doorknob keys jingling. "He's got nothing, Addie. He's my brother." And just like that, the snake was in my garden. Our house was already bursting. Me 7 months pregnant and feeling like a stretched out water balloon. 3 kids under 7, Liam, Leo, and Maya, a tornado of noise and sticky fingers. And Mark, my husband, who worked construction and was gone from sunup to long after sundown. The last thing I needed was a 35-year-old man-child moping on my sofa. The first week was a blur of performative grief. Dave just sat there staring at the TV, a cloud of stale cigarette smoke following him, even though I made him smoke outside. He was too depressed to work, too traumatized to even look for a new place. I tried to be patient. I made him plates of food. I washed his smoky clothes. I told the kids to give their Uncle Dave some space. The patience ran out on day 8. I just wrestled Maya down for a nap and was finally sitting down on the armchair, my swollen ankles propped up on the ottoman. I let out a sigh that came from the depths of my soul. "Must be nice," Dave said from the couch. He didn't even look away from the TV. I blinked. "What?" "Taking another break. Wish I had that luxury." He took a long drag from his vape, a sickly sweet pineapple smell filling the air. I stared at him, my mouth half open. I had been on my feet since 5 a.m. I'd made 3 separate breakfasts, cleaned up spilled juice, done 2 loads of laundry, mediated a fight over a Lego dragon, and scrubbed crayon off the wall. This was my first time sitting down. "I'm pregnant, Dave," I said, my voice tight. He just grunted. "Yeah. I know." It got worse. Every time I paused, he had a comment. I'd lean against the counter to catch my breath, and he'd say, "Tired already?" I'd sit on the floor to play with Liam, and he'd chuckle. "Good thing you're already down there. Save you the trip." He never said it to my face, always to the TV or his phone, a passive-aggressive jab lob from the safety of his stained sweatpants. I told Mark about it on the phone. He's calling me lazy, Mark. Constantly. "Babe, he just lost everything." He's lashing out. "He doesn't mean it," Mark said, his voice tinny and distant over the sound of machinery. "Just try to ignore him." For me, so I tried. I bit my tongue until it was raw. I'd see him watching me, a smug little smile on his face, and I'd just turn away and start wiping a counter that was already clean. The house started to feel smaller, like the walls were closing in, and his presence was a suffocating weight in every room. Then he turned his attention to Leo. My middle child, Leo, is a whirlwind. He's brilliant and sweet and feels everything at 100 miles an hour. We were in the middle of getting him tested for ADHD. He needs to move to be loud, to burn off the frantic energy that sparks inside him. Dave hated it. It started with glares. Leo would be running through the living room, pretending to be a superhero, and Dave would track him with narrowed eyes, his jaw clenched. Then came the muttering. Jesus Christ, he'd sigh loud enough for me to hear from the kitchen. One afternoon, Leo was having a hard time. He couldn't get his blocks to stack right, and he let out a frustrated shriek, knocking the tower over. "Brat," Dave hissed from the couch. I froze a dishcloth in my hand. "What did you just say?" He looked up, all innocence. "Nothing." But I heard him. And from then on, he didn't bother to hide it. He became Leo's shadow, a personal storm cloud of negativity. "Shut up, Leo," he'd snap when Leo was telling me an excited, rambling story about his day at preschool. "Stop running, you're gonna break something," he'd bark when Leo chased his brother through the hall. "Can't you control your kid?" he asked me, gesturing a thumb at Leo, who was simply humming while he colored. The final straw with Leo happened yesterday. I was in the nursery folding tiny onesies when I heard Dave's voice in the hallway, low and menacing. I said, "Be quiet." I peeked out. Dave was standing over Leo, who had backed himself into a corner, his face pale and his big brown eyes filled with tears. He was clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. I wasn't being loud. Leo whispered, his voice trembling. "You're always loud," Dave sneered. "It's annoying." "Shut up." A hot white rage exploded behind my eyes. I was out of that nursery in 2 strides. "Dave." My voice was dangerously calm. "Get away from my son." He turned, startled. "I was just telling him to be quiet." "I heard you. You will not speak to him like that ever again. You will not speak to him at all. Do you understand me? Leave him alone." He put his hands up in mock surrender. "Fine. Whatever. Can't handle your own kid." He stalked back to his throne on the couch, and I spent the next 20 minutes holding a sobbing Leo, rocking him and whispering that he was a good boy, that he wasn't annoying, that he was perfect. Today the air is thick with a toxic silence. Dave hasn't spoken a word to me. He just sits there radiating resentment. I've kept the kids mostly in the backyard, trying to create a buffer zone. It's almost noon. The kids are getting hungry, their energy flagging. I haul my heavy body into the kitchen and pull out a box of macaroni and cheese. As I'm stirring the noodles, the 3 kids swarm the kitchen, whining and pulling on my shirt. I'm hungry. Is it ready yet? Liam took my car. It's a normal lunchtime chorus of chaos. I'm trying to drain the pasta, shush the kids, and find the cheese powder all at once, my back screaming in protest. Suddenly, the noise from the kids dies down. I look over my shoulder. Dave is standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed over his chest. He watches me for a long moment, a deliberate, calculating look in his eyes. He lets the silence stretch until it's humming with tension. Then he speaks, his voice a low, challenging drawl. "Where's mine?" I turn around fully, the hot colander still in my hand. "Where's your what?" A slow, ugly smirk spreads across his face. He jerks his chin toward the pot of macaroni, then looks me up and down, a dismissive flick of his eyes. "My lunch," he says. "Ain't you the woman of the house?" The metal colander felt dangerously light in my hand. For a split second, I had a vivid image of swinging it, of seeing that smug look wiped off his face by a faceful of hot macaroni. The rage was a physical thing, a hot spike in my throat. "I am the woman of this house," I said, my voice low and shaking. "And this woman is making lunch for her children. If you're hungry, the pantry is to your left. I'm sure you can manage a Pop-Tart." His smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of genuine anger. He opened his mouth to say something else, something I'm sure would have been 10 times worse. But we were saved, or so I thought, by the sound of Mark's work truck rumbling into the driveway. Dave's face changed instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by a pathetic put-upon look. He was a master of masks. The front door opened and Mark walked in, smelling of sawdust and sweat. "Hey, what's for lunch? I'm starving." Before I could even open my mouth, Dave pointed a thumb at me. He looked at Mark, his expression, a perfect blend of pity and shared masculine suffering. "Good luck getting any," he said with a sad shake of his head. "She ain't much of a womanly type, is she? Couldn't even make me lunch." That was it. The string I'd been holding onto, the last frayed thread of my patience, didn't just snap. It vaporized. The colander hit the sink with a deafening clatter. Pasta flew everywhere. I didn't care. I turned and all the fury I had swallowed for 2 weeks came roaring out of me. "Get out." The sound that came out of my own throat shocked me. It was guttural, raw, the sound of an animal backed into a corner. Both of them jumped. The kids, who had been watching silently from the doorway, scattered like mice. Dave's jaw dropped in mock surprise. "Whoa, what's her problem?" "You," I hissed, pointing a trembling finger at him. "You are my problem. You sit on my couch all day criticizing me. You call me lazy while I'm growing a human and raising 3 others. You terrorize my son, my sweet boy. And then you stand there in my kitchen and demand I serve you like a maid. No. Not anymore." I stalked toward him, my belly leading the way. He actually took a step back. "Get your things. Get out of my house. Now." Mark finally found his voice, stepping between us. "Addie, babe, calm down. What's going on?" "Ask him," I spat, never taking my eyes off Dave. "Ask him what he said to Leo yesterday. Ask him why my son was crying in a corner because your brother was looming over him, calling him annoying." Mark's head whipped around to look at Dave. "Is that true?" "She's exaggerating." Dave stammered, his face turning blotchy. The kid was being loud. I just told him to pipe down. It was a joke. Everything's a joke. It's not a joke when you follow a 6-year-old around the house, calling him a brat. I screamed. It's not a joke when you make me feel like a worthless servant in my own home. You have 5 minutes to pack a bag and get out of my sight, or I swear to God I will drag you out myself. Dave looked at Mark, his eyes wide with feigned disbelief. "Mark, are you gonna let her talk to me like that? After everything I've been through?" Mark looked from his brother's panicked face to my stony one. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the lifelong loyalty warring with the undeniable truth of what he was hearing. He'd been warned. I had told him. He exhaled slowly, a long, defeated breath. "You should go, Dave," he said quietly. The shock on Dave's face was finally real. He looked utterly betrayed. "What, you're kicking me out?" "Mark, I have nowhere to go. My house is a pile of ash. I'm your brother. And this is my wife, Mark," said, his voice gaining strength as he took my hand. "This is her house too. And these are her kids. You don't get to disrespect them and stay here. I told you to knock it off." Dave's face crumpled into a mask of pure victimhood. "I can't believe this. Kicked out by my own family." He stomped off toward the spare room, muttering about ungrateful bitches and how he'd never forget this. As he rummaged around, throwing his few belongings into a garbage bag, He kept up a running commentary about having to sleep in his car, about how no one cared about him. I don't care if you live on the street, I said, my voice cold and flat. You brought this on yourself. He shot me a look of pure hatred, then shouldered his bag and pushed past Mark, slamming the front door behind him so hard a picture fell off the wall. Silence. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and Maya starting to whimper from the other room. Mark ran a hand through his hair, his shoulders slumped. He looked exhausted. The kids slowly crept back into the kitchen, their eyes wide, staring at the macaroni splattered on the floor. I sank into a kitchen chair, my body trembling with the adrenaline crash. I wrapped my arms around my belly as if to protect the baby from the toxic residue of the last 2 weeks. Mark came and knelt in front of me. He took my hands. They were ice cold. Addie, he said softly. Are you okay? I just nodded, unable to speak. He hesitated, and I knew what was coming. I could see the guilt working its way across his face. Listen, I know he was being an ass, but are you sure about this? Kicking him out, I mean. Babe, your hormones are all over the place with the pregnancy. And you've never really liked him. My head snapped up. Don't you dare, I whispered. Do not blame this on my hormones. I'm not, he said, quickly holding up his hands. It's just, he's got nothing, Addie. Literally nothing but his car and that trash bag. We're all he has. I pulled my hands away from his. I looked at him, my husband, the man I loved, and I felt a chasm open between us. He had a home. He had food. He had a safe place to land, I said, my voice hard as steel. And he pissed all over it. This wasn't about my hormones, Mark. This wasn't about me disliking him. This was about him deliberately trying to hurt me and my child. He stood over Leo and made him cry. For fun. That's a line. There is no coming back from that line. I stood up, my body aching. I looked at the mess in the kitchen, at my kids' worried faces. He is not welcome in this house again, I said. I don't care if he's your brother. I don't care if he's homeless. He is not welcome near my children. He is not welcome near me. Are we clear? Mark stared at me, really seeing the finality in my eyes for the first time. He swallowed, then gave a slow, solemn nod. Yeah, Addie, he said. We're clear.